Teams release.
You're on, Commissioner.
Ready to go? All right, good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Port of Cascade Locks Commission meeting, January 21, 2025, at 6 p.m. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
President Lawrence,
Here.
Vice President Clute. Here. Commissioner Knapp,
Here.
Commissioner Peterson, Commissioner Dodd.
Here. Pledge, I looked over.
Okay, modifications, additions, and changes to the agenda, please.
Yeah, in the executive session, we will not be having this evening, so number 7 we can remove.
Okay, fantastic. Right. Consent agenda. Approval of minutes for commission meeting from November 19th, 2024, December 3rd, 2024, and January 7th, 2025. Ratification in the bills in the amount of $661,451.36. Approval of payroll for December in the amount of $122,676.76. And for the month of January in the amount of $76,450.06.
Motion to approve as stated.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, I think Mr. Clark might beat you by a second. Yeah, so, motion second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All righty. Public comment. Ma'am, sir.
You want to?
No, you're all right. Come on up.
Hi, I'm Paul Bright. I moved here to Cascade Locks in August with my husband, Jake. And we put a little free library in our front yard a month ago. Little Free Library is a nonprofit organization started in about 15 years ago. There are almost 200,000 of these all across the world in 115 countries. And what it is it's a place to put books, and anybody can take a book. They can keep the book. They can put other books in. It's open 24 hours a day. It's accessible to anyone, any sorts of books that they want in there. Jake and I have been stewarding it for a month now, a little over a month. And I was really surprised at how well it's being received here. There were people who were making comments on the Facebook, the Cascade Locks neighborhood page, about how they've been talking about how they wanted a little free library for a long time, Cascade Locks. And a lot of people, I think you were there, you said this weekend.
Yeah, I grabbed your book this weekend.
Awesome, excellent, that's fantastic. So the whole idea behind these little free libraries, it's a great place for books that you've already read that you're done with, but instead of throwing it away, you just leave it for somebody else. So what I would like to propose is putting a little free library in the campground here in Marine Park. And I was speaking with Laurel yesterday. She said she spoke to you, I believe.
I got a text message, I did.
Okay, anyway, it's a decision for y'all to make, and y'all can have me back if you want to ask more questions. I don't want to take up your time tonight, but I just want to present to you that I would build it, I would put it together. I'm thinking of it something that would be mobile, so it would only be out seasonally during basically the PCT season. I do realize that you have campers year round, but only a few, and here at Cascade Locks, we have some pretty severe weather. So it'd be better, it would be easier on us to only be stewarding it during the summertime when it's really going to be used a lot. So Jake and I are offering to be the stewards for this and to build it and to pay all the expenses and then be registered with this Little Free Library website, which has a map, including the one that we have, that shows all these little free libraries all over the world. So if somebody's searching for one, they can locate it on the map. Okay.
Awesome. I think it's a great idea. We do have a few neighbors in town who have their own personal book library, like you see in Portland. Are those residences able to register on the map too?
So anybody who starts a Little Free Library can register it on the map as long as you get a charter with this organization.
Okay.
The charter costs, I think, $45 is what I believe I paid. And the cost of building the facility, the kit, is usually about $150 or so. All of this are expenses that I would be absorbing. So it's no expense to y'all at all. Plus it would cost a little bit more because we put it on wheels so that it can be removed during the horrible rainy winter, 100 inches of onslaught.
What are you doing with yours?
I'm sorry, what?
What are you doing with yours during the winter time?
So ours is actually in the front yard and it's intended to be year round, but because it's in my front yard, I can be watching it, paying attention to it every day. And what I've been doing is I've been opening up the door on beautiful days like today to try to reduce the humidity in there.
Right.
We built it out of an old army trunk. Our house is gonna be sort of railroad themed. There's a little railroad depot in my driveway, which is my play room, my hobby room. And then we're building a garden railroad in the front yard. For people to enjoy watching trains going by. But anyway, so ours kind of has this theme of railroad,
Right.
is what that is. I'm thinking that for the campground, it would probably just be the standard traditional kit, which kind of looks like a birdhouse. Probably hold about 50 or 60 books, most likely.
Also, I recommend reaching out to maybe the museum in the city of Cascade Locks. I know they have some sort of library inside City Hall. Outside they have like kind of a donation box, but and we also have a downtown association nonprofit called Main Street Cascade. Also see if they could find some other locations for it.
Okay, cool. Awesome. What I was thinking about really was for the hikers.
Right.
Would you guys like to see this on the next agenda for consideration?
Sure.
Yeah, cool. We'll get it up. We'll put it on the next agenda for consideration for the
Does it
commission.
need to be voted on just to have a place to put a free
Um,
library that we're not paying for at all?
I mean, you're more than welcome to say no, or to make this decision anytime you want. So I mean,
Yeah.
if you want
I just-
additional
I feel like-
information, costs, where the location's gonna be, if you want to be involved in that piece of it or want a presentation, then I would say yes. But if we're just comfortable with, let's put it in somewhere, then I'm sure we can handle that as staff.
General
I think it
consensus
just helps
means
tourism overall. It's another benefit for people. that- So.
there's nothing but benefit here. I think it's a win all around, so I would be comfortable with not having to discuss it further and just let it happen.
Want to make a motion on that?
I guess I just have a couple of questions, like just logistical questions, like. I get the idea of moving it for weather, but if it's gonna be in the campground, Laurel, they're all year round anyways, right?
It's true.
Is there a reason for it to be mobile? And then
Um,
if it is mobile, where's it gonna live?
there are times when, she goes on vacation. Usually Parker or someone else fills in for that. I don't have a specific spot in mind, maybe over by where they take their registration, the cash box, and there's a little already like a place where you put posters. That probably makes the most sense, but I hadn't really looked at that yet.
Laura was suggesting somewhere in that area, but I don't know specifically what yet.
I love the idea, if you wanna make one for my house, I love that.
So I mean, we could keep it up year round. I'm not against that, but I wasn't aware that there were even campers there during the winter.
Oh, yeah.
And apparently there are.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, I have nothing against keeping it year round and we would be stewards to it all year round. I'm just aware that there's gonna be a lot more demand during the summer with, of course, so many more people.
Also, maybe,
Make a motion,
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we, I guess, explore next steps and logistics on making this happen.
Cool.
I'll second that motion.
yeah, motion second to, further this idea and, follow through with it. All those in favor?
I,
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Awesome, Paul. Me and staff will be in contact.
All right.
Awesome, sounds great.
Thank
Have a
you.
great night. Thank
thanks
you.
for coming in.
Me too.
That's yours.
You have, Denise right
More
here,
people
yeah.
that can read here than you would think.
See y'all later.
Yeah, spelling and stuff.
There's an online comment as well. Right. Commissioner. There's an online comment as well.
Somebody get, okay, yes, TV Land that wants to comment or make a presentation.
Hello, I didn't hear you call my name. Am I speaking now?
You are speaking now.
Good, okay. Just Denise Emmerling Baker on behalf of Main Street Cascade Locks, not any other affiliation. And I just want to give you a little update where our executive board is, that we are working diligently. We have we've met once this recently, and then we are in communication about honing up our criteria for choosing the building revitalization grant. We have a lot of criteria that we are working from. We know a scoring guard would be nice, so we will let you know that within the next couple of weeks, and any other stakeholders that are interested. What else on that note? It is exciting to see the excitement about this, and I've shared with some stakeholders and possibly you some other grants that come through. We can't think that this is the only one. There are so many. USRDA again look that way. MCED knows about things, and in 2 years, this building revitalization grant will be available again. I just wanted to put out there that as our executive board is meeting, I hope, and you're looking at your own grants, thank you for doing that. We may put in for some small funding for our startup fees, because to have an affiliated Main Street requires attending certain conferences. It requires some effort on our part that actually does cost money, and we are looking at other financial resources for that. But it is just putting that out there in case all your money goes away. We will, when our executive team meets again, we'll talk more about that. So I just want to give you a little update. You can always reach out to us, mainstreetcascadelocks@gmail.com. And yay, thanks for all that you're doing. Congratulations on the city council voting to sell the museum collection to the port. And we look forward to your next steps with that. Thanks.
Anybody have any questions regarding that? Okay. All right. Then moving along. Special presentations and reports by outside resources staff and government officials. Betty Light update, Jim Andrews.
Well, good evening, Chair, Commissioners, and Port team. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to return and talk to you about our year in review for 2024. Let's get this guy up and running. So first off, I introduced last time that I was here, Captain Steve Caputo. He's our general manager, hired early December, and has been hard at work making sure that the stern wheeler operation remains vibrant and compliant and productive for all of us. What I'd like to do is just go through a presentation and summarize the report that I prepared and submitted to Jeremiah last week, and then answer any questions or talk about where we are hoping to go in 2025. Any questions before I get started? Okay, I'd like to start with the bottom line up front. That way, if the power goes out or there's an earthquake, at least we got this important detail passed. We completed our first full year of operation in 2024. We operated from the 26th of April to the 1st of December in Cascade Locks. The contract requires us to put in 100 days of operations in Cascade Locks. We actually performed 155 days this year, so we met that contractual requirement. Over that time period, we served 17,589 customers, and that does not include the 80 or so gift cards that we sold in December. I'll talk a little bit more about that as I get further into the presentation. From a financial standpoint, our top line sales were just a little over $1 million, $1,074,653. Out of that top line number, 103,309 was just passed through employee tips, and 167 and $40 were the caterers' earnings. We worked with Gorgeous Beer Company, and so when we got done paying those partners out, our stern wheeler revenue was $804,304. So really pleasing results for our first year of operations. I did not expect us to do as well as we did, but now that we've set that bar, we want to exceed it. So I'll again talk a little bit more about our goals going forward. Contract specifies a 10% revenue share for this year. There is no maintenance fund in 2024. But as you may know, Jeremiah and I talked about the maintenance requirements for the boat, maintenance and repair requirements, and we used some of that money for those purposes. Again, bottom line is we matured a lot of systems. We did a lot of recovery and investigation of things that maybe needed to be addressed when we took on the contract. And we have a lot more to do, but I can tell you that the stern wheeler is in really good shape and getting better every month. Could you advance the slide, please? So just in big blocks, our year in review started in January. We were handed the opportunity to respond to the breakaway from the pier in January. Fortunately, that married up pretty well with scheduled shipyard availability for the repowering. We accomplished both of those things at the same time through the January through March timeframe. We moved from there into learning operations of how are we going to operate in our revenue from April through July. July 4th is really the starting gun for the sprint that is the stern wheeler season, and that carries us through until about PCT days. So that period from July 4th to mid-August is it's all out sprint. We learned a lot about what we could ask our team to do. We were still growing the team and training the team at that point. So we just had a confluence of a lot of stressors as we got through that period. And then we get into August through October. We had to sort some team things out because we learned that we tried to do a lot, probably tried to do more than we could reasonably ask the team to do. And that resulted in us shifting our management focus, bringing Captain Caputo in, bringing in a dedicated sales person, Cam LaFleur, who's been a godsend for us, and just streamlining our hierarchy and our operations, which brought us into the fourth quarter here, November through December, bringing the stern wheeler out of the gorge down to Vancouver. That learning operation of operating for the winter, things did not happen as swiftly as I'd hoped. We started in September trying to get an arrangement to take care of the boat downriver. We finally got things ironed out after Thanksgiving. Unfortunately, that put us on the hind foot as far as being able to market that opportunity. So it was not as productive as we had hoped it would be, but it was more productive than having the boat laid up. So could you advance this slide, please? So reverting back to that idea that we had a lot of maintenance and repair intensive activities as we've gotten into the boat and got to learn a little bit more. We also had a change out of our engineering team. Steve has a lot of engineering background. We also brought in Dan Frank as a consultant. He's the configuration manager for HMS, our mentor partner. And we promoted George Torres into an engineer role. And so that combination of new people and learning more about the boat has resulted in us finding things that I think we will continue to probably do as we move forward. I wanted to give Steve an opportunity to talk in further detail if that was appropriate. What do you think?
If you guys think it's appropriate, yeah, absolutely. We're talking maintenance and repair.
Yeah.
So my primary focus right now is to hand the entire boat. Plumbing systems, electrical systems, critical systems, and I'm finding a lot of systems that are intact, but we may not necessarily have a comprehensive grasp of how they operate. And by that I mean there may be switching or valving or configurations that would improve function. So I'm in that process now, and that process includes literally drawing the system as as it sits in the boat, so actuals are what they're called. And not only drawing the system in its entirety, but including valve arrangements for different functions. And it's a drawn out process. I'm in the bilge and in the bilge system now, bilge fire pump system, and it'll take a solid 30 hours of hand over handing the whole boat to make sure it works properly. And part of the reason for doing that is once I've got that package complete, I've now got a product that I can train crew to, which is the big thing, which is the reason why we do it. So a deckhand that's qualified to my standard, to our standard as a deckhand, will have the knowledge to be able to do that on the fly if we've got a reason to do it, which is why we do everything, just so we can combat a casualty. So, and I've been in operations for 5 years at a time and never have a casualty, but it's the muscle memory, it's the constant reoccurring drills and training that gets you past the initial shock that you've got a problem. So that's what I do with every system that's critical, and that's the process I do. In addition to that, we've got systems, our PA system, for example, it's the sound system. Technically, the Coast Guard is only interested in the PA function. The ability to talk to every soul on board, regardless of where they are. That system had some hiccups when I came on board. It had, it was degraded. So we fortunately had a marine technician that could come on board and actually troubleshoot it with me. And by that, I mean, we walked through every portion of it, dropped down ceiling panels and everything, so we could get a look at what we were dealing with. And that was very productive. The end result is we've essentially rewired the entire system. And the reason for that was the Coast Guard's very black and white and very detailed on how electrical conductors are terminated, meaning how they plug into each other, how they connect to each other. It's a very finite process that's not negotiable. And what we found was a lot of end user work. So a speaker needed to be installed somewhere, and it was wired into the system by somebody that's not qualified to do that. While the end result was it worked for a period of time, it wasn't done to a standard that is acceptable. So, and that's what we found when we were hand over handing the system. Wringing out the system is what it's called. So the end result again is a system that's now functioning at 100%. There is a component of the system. It's basically a UPS, like for a computer. It protects the computer if there's a surge or you lose power. It gives you time to shut it down. That's exactly what this thing does, except it's 30 years old. It's 20 years past its shelf life or past its service life. So it actually had glass resistors and capacitors in it. Kind of cool, but so, and the replacement's like $75 and it's plug and play. You don't have to hardwire it in or anything. So that simple upgrade took the 60 cycle hum, the noise you hear in the speaker system, out of the PA system. So, and that was the end result, basically.
The original one was probably like $5,000.
Well, when they invented those,
Yeah.
right? But all of the technology that would create the problems that thing protected from are gone now. Everything's cleaner, smoother, and a lot more serviceable. So anyway.
So when you say that it was unacceptable, was that to Coast Guard standards or to your standards?
Coast Guard.
Okay. And then I had a follow up.
Well, pardon me, when you say it, when I said unacceptable.
You said the PA system was unacceptable.
Oh. Yes, to the Coast Guard.
Okay. And then I guess as a follow up, weren't new speakers in the whole PA system at least upgraded before you guys, once you guys got the contract and was put in place? Like back in, not just this year, but the prior year?
I think we may have inserted some components, but I'm not, I know we didn't really do the comprehensive ring out of the system at that time.
So I remember a presentation from you guys saying that you guys adopted the entire speaker system.
Yeah, I think what we did is we replaced speakers and we probably replaced some components, but what Steve is talking about is like getting into the wiring run and seeing how those wiring runs are married together and terminated and brought to the power source. We didn't do any of that, and I would hesitate to have asked the vendor who did the work prior, because they're not really a marine electronics vendor, they're more of a car stereo person. That's who we were able to find when we first got here. We've had the luxury of having all of the resources down in Vancouver or at the shipyard, and that's sort of how we got to where we are today.
Right.
I have a question specifically about vulnerabilities of PA systems, like, for example, in the event of emergency, do we have adequate Coast Guard approved PA systems in the boiler room in like highly sensitive areas or like in bathrooms or maybe on deck outside?
We're in compliance with Coast Guard regulation in all regards.
And as far as taking inventory of the whole PA system, are you putting this into your software? So does that?
Yes, yeah.
So they can figure out and pinpoint where they need to go if the issue comes up.
Yeah, so the Helm operations system, which is what we're using for our maintenance and configuration management. Steve and George spend a good part of every week making sure that that system reflects the way the boat is. And as we make a change in the boat, it gets back into Helm, and then that triggers the next cycle of recurring maintenance. So but it's got to be, as you say, Commissioner, it's got to be both directions. You know, we've got to make sure the boat's right, and we got to make sure the configuration and the software is right, and that they stay in sync.
Thank you.
So it sounds like this is more than, oh, sorry, go ahead. This sounds like this is more than obviously just the PA system. It sounds like you're doing this through all of the different elements of the boat.
Correct.
Yeah. So you talked about having a setup where everybody's got their own screen with the schedules on that. Where are you at with that process? I think you talked about that, Jim, possibly having more of a digital setup where basically everybody could look at the service log or whatever and log into it, and if they've done it, then they check it off on a computer. Everybody's got like a handheld computer screen or something to that effect.
Well, it's not that everyone has their own. We have an engineering tablet.
Gotcha.
And that whoever's we'll call them a watch engineer, would have possession of that tablet as well. And that tablet would tell them the tasks that they need to do as the schedule presents it, and they would record it, the completion of those things, into the software as well. So that's ongoing. When we say Helm operations, that's that system we're talking about of making sure that software stays up to date.
Cool.
Is this PA system also going to include some sort of alarm in the event that the boat becomes detached or something? Similar to last year's incident. Is there some sort of warning system you'll integrate with that?
I don't know that it would go into the PA system.
It would. No.
But we have talked about, and I think you and I talked about
last year a little
quite a bit of.
But I was just wondering where you guys are at with that right now.
Do you know, have we talked about that one?
You touched on it, I haven't.
I would say we haven't made
Hasn't been.
enormous progress on that part yet, but we do know that we need to be able to do that.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind you, that was one of the concerns from the root cause analysis, is to have some sort of alarm go off in the event that there's an emergency and it detaches in a storm or whatever.
Yep, that's right.
Just to warn all the bystanders, so.
Well, overall, it's very encouraging that you guys had a better year than you had hoped, and one point the previous operator, AWI, Dan Yates, had told me that they lost money for about 5 years before they were doing well with it, that sort of thing.
Yep.
So realize in the transition that they're it's good to hear that you're doing as well as could be expected at this point.
Yeah, we're hoping to do better than 5 years. But I'll talk a little bit about our financial goals for the next year. You forward, and I'll just breeze through this really quick because I think everyone mostly has this information. Just how we're structured. Steve is the overall general manager. He's in charge of operations, safety, efficiency, strategy. His direct report is Cam LaFleur, who is our sales and commercial manager. Those are the things that Cam's focused on: charters, caterer relationship, helping the bar and restaurant team be successful, and doing a lot of our Facebook online marketing, print marketing, customer relationships, that sort of thing. His direct report is Chris Davis, who's our bar manager, and Chris is responsible for farmhouse and vendor relationships, especially our suppliers and vendors for our restaurant equipment, food and drink, and sanitary type inventory. And then I'm currently handling all the bookkeeping and accounting. We hope that we are successful enough this year that we can bring on a dedicated team to do that, but we're not there yet. So could you move forward one more? So looking forward to 2025, this is where we are focused on our efforts, is to improve financial reporting and management. We learned a lot over this past year. We learned often in hindsight of the things that we didn't have broken out or tagged or reported in a way that would allow us to easily recall it and report it in year end. So we've made a lot of progress there. We're not where I want to be quite yet. Progress continues. We're looking to build a system of maritime professionalism. And that's part of what Steve mentioned is our qualification process, our standards of training, our standards of performance, and making sure that as we bring new crew members on, they're brought into that system through a repeatable, objective process, not just to quote unquote work on the stern wheeler, but to become maritime professionals and crew members that also happen to work on the stern wheeler. And where Steve and I have talked about is we would like to get ourselves into the enviable position where other maritime employers sort of look at us as that's the way we want to do it. And I think we'll get there in 2025. We have a process and a plan in place. In terms of our numbers going forward for stern wheeler revenue, I believe that we can exceed 1.5 million. Of course, I want to handicap that a little bit because I don't want to make the goal so far that we get to more like trying to get there. But having done about 1.2, I think we'll get to 1.5 without with a high degree of success or a high opportunity for success. The bigger challenge for us, I think, is to keep the expenses below $1 million. Now, if we can do that, that leaves $500,000 to grow and to fund margin of excellence opportunities for us, in addition to ensuring that we have the money that we owe you all and the citizens of Cascade Locks for our maintenance fund and for our revenue share. So we're entering this year having had that dialogue early in the season and setting things up so that we can achieve that. Yes, sir.
For 2025 goals for 1.5 million revenue, what do you think is going to be the biggest driver? Ticket sales, or do you think it's going to be more social events? Or
Well, we last year our bread and butter was the expedition, the 1 hour or 2 hour expedition. I believe that will still be our primary revenue driver, but in just the short time since we've brought Cam on as our director of customer experience, we've grown our private charter revenue by probably 80% in just a few short months.
and what do you think about continuing the social programs like comedy on the boat or whiskey wheeler?
Yes, absolutely.
It's very popular.
Yeah.
Was that profitable for you guys operationally or
No. but that's okay. I mean, once we've done well with our expeditions and our what I call our bread and butter, that leaves the opportunity for us to do the other things that, maybe we don't make a lot of margin on, but they're important for the town. They're important for us to have an opportunity to give back. And, they give us the opportunity to do things that we aren't currently doing. Where one of the things Steve and I talked about is I really want to get to the point where we know and the town knows when we're hosting Whiskey Wheeler. So it's an every Thursday. And then you can take that to the bank. You can say, hey, I'll meet you at Whiskey Wheeler. The problem we had this past year is, as I said, we kind of overran our staff capability. We very quickly found ourselves where we were cost marginalized because we're paying so much more in overtime and bringing additional staff and trying to adjust to changes in the schedule, that it just didn't leave any time or funding for things like Whiskey Wheeler. Like if we had to burn one of our few bartenders on Whiskey Wheeler, then we didn't have somebody to work the bar for the brunch or the dinner.
Yeah.
And so we had to make some tough choices there. Fortunately, I think we're further ahead that curve now because of what we had a chance to do in December.
Yeah, I think one of the ideas, I mean, it's hard to run a bar where there's no entry fee, because ticket sales have an entry fee and
Yeah.
you guarantee each head that goes in, you're making money. With Whiskey Wheeler, it seems like you might want to look at like a minimum door fee or something to guarantee that you're making some money off each head or something.
Right. And also to have a demand signal of who we expect to see. Are we going to see 15 people or are we going to see 60? That it would be good to know going in that night. Do we need 2
And
bar
promoting,
backs?
and also promoting on social media.
Yep.
Both sides of the river, so.
So that hits the nail on the head of some things we want to do better. We want to have a more repeatable expectation on Whiskey Wheeler. We want to do our tailgate events that we had started doing in 2023. We didn't really hit the mark on that in 2024, but we're going to bring that back in 2025. We're also thinking about some new things that we hadn't done before. For example, we have to bring the boat back from Vancouver to Cascade Locks. We're going to do that March 23rd. We're actually selling that event as a commemorative historical tour with associated narration for the Oregon Steam Navigation Company, which ended its service in March of 1880. So we're using that event, which we have to do anyway, as an opportunity to sell tickets to bring customers along and teach them about the Oregon Steam Navigation Company and how important that was to stern wheelers and to the Columbia River trade.
My last question is, the revenue figures that you provided, does that include the revenue made in Vancouver as well?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's full year.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, we didn't do as well as I had hoped we would do in December in Vancouver. We probably booked about 16,000 in revenue. Certainly better than sidelining the boat, but I was hoping for quite a bit more than that. We only had one private charter the whole time we were down there. So
Were you doing the same thing next year? Taking boat back down to Vancouver?
that's the plan, yes, sir.
So with a little bit of advanced time to market, what do you think if it was 16 this year, what do you think it might be up to?
Definitely the boat, the lights down on the river are pretty big thing that time of year. So
75.
Have you hosted any weddings or explored the ideas of weddings on the boat?
We have, yeah, we actually have done a number of weddings on the boat already.
Okay.
And that is, I would say 50% of our private charter interest is either a rehearsal dinner or an after party after a wedding while everyone's still in town, or at the actual ceremony itself.
Partnership with Gorge's beer with the catering service, that's working out good, I assume?
It is. We just met with them today to talk about where lessons learned from last year and what we need to do for next year. I think that was a productive meeting. They recently hired a kind of a director of operations manager that's gonna help with the logistics and how to operate well, because it is two different organizations. We have a little bit different alignment, but you know, it'll help having Steve having that person that he can talk to, Cam having that person he can talk to. We're looking forward to working with them.
Also, this week is the grand opening of the new Exitapa Mexican restaurant, and I'm sure you've reached out to the owner there already.
We just met with them again today as they were working to get ready for tomorrow. And we told them, we'll give you a little time to get sorted out, but right after that, we want to meet with you and start talking about how we work together.
Could be a pretty positive impact, more traffic down on the waterfront.
Yes, sir.
Go right from having margaritas to going to whiskey wheeler, you know.
Yes, sir. Exactly.
So.
Or selling some
Dangerous.
food on the boat.
Yep, and that's one of the options we're talking about as well.
Have some grab and go burritos and stuff.
Yep,
It'd be cool
exactly.
for the 1 hour.
Taco Tuesday on the boat.
Taco Tuesday, that's right.
When you said, sorry, when you said tailgate events, are you talking about like watching football games on there?
Sure.
Okay, all right. And now, you did that last year or you did not?
We did that in 2023. I don't think we did a tailgate in 2024. Kind of overarching, these are the things that we've specifically been focused on as we come into 2025. As I mentioned, the qualification system that Steve's been putting together. We have a new ticketing system, which has allowed for us to do some of the things better that we're doing now. Very impressed with the ticketing system. Wish we could have afforded it earlier, but we got there as quick as we could. And as I mentioned, we're already doing about $3,000 in gift card sales that we couldn't do with the old system. So that has opened a whole new opportunity for us. That system is also a lot more nimble in terms of managing the manifests. So we're pushing the order for like brunches and dinner cruises for them to actually order their entrees and their selections at ticketing as they order their ticket. And we can use that information to pass to the caterer, so they'll know 3 weeks ahead, 2 weeks ahead, a week ahead, this is how we're trending, this is what we need to be prepared for. Whereas we just didn't have that ability to pull that information from the last ticketing software. That same company will be doing our new website, which is going to give us a lot better control of pushing updated information via our own website. Right now, we are confined to using Facebook for that, but I'm looking forward to being able to control the content and modify the content on the fly for our website. As we mentioned, Next Opera Restaurant, looking forward to working with them. We plan to start our first operation that day we come back from Vancouver, and then go right into operating for expeditions as of the last week of March. So we'll actually pick up almost a whole month of additional operations in 2025. Yes, sir.
Have you considered the idea of having a info booth or excursion opportunity based in Portland that shuttles people out to the gorge to do these kind of like half-day trips or whatnot, or maybe partner with some of the gorge tours or waterfall bike tours?
Yeah, we also met with them when we met with Gorgeous, Gray Line. They run the waterfall trolley, and we met with Scott Webster, who runs the fruit company, and they have a whole array of businesses that they run in conjunction with that. So we're looking at trying to partner with them to do some cross marketing, and also work with Gray Line to build a car-free, hop on the bus down in Portland. They'll bring you up to Cascade Locks. We'll get you on board for your expedition. They'll go up the road to Gorgeous for lunch, or they'll eat at Ixtapa. If they want, they'll hop on the North Loop, which is between Cascade Locks and the Hood River, and then they'll take them up to the river to do the fruit company and the fruit train, and then work their way back south. So we're already working in that direction to try to grow that business as well. think I've covered everything on that, and I mentioned the charter sales, we're really looking to grow that book of business. I think we just needed to get to a point where we had the ability to hire Cam and just point him in that direction, and that's been all we needed to do. He's going out chasing it from there.
Another side question for you, just I'm kind
Yes,
of
sir.
going through your thing. Sorry for taking off
No, no.
of your thing. I just see personnel 19, that's still pretty accurate for how many people you have?
We'll be more than that in the season. We'll probably be around 25 or so.
And then most people live,
Hood River, Cascade Locks, Stevenson, Battleground, that kind of, that stretch. Washougal. Yeah, Washougal, both sides of the river.
awesome, thanks for
Yes, sir.
my random question.
Also, there's another opportunity in 2026 to be part of the 100th anniversary of the bridge.
Yeah.
The bridge subcommittee, myself and Carrie are on that. We're doing pre-planning of the events, but we'd love to have the steering wheeler involved in running some sort of excursions, maybe specialized for the bridge ceremony.
We would love to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Steve,
not till 2026.
Yeah, well, I think it's September 2026.
I think if you could maybe bring Steve and Cam in as you get to the point where you're ready to start operationalizing that conversation, we'd like to see what we could do to.
Or when you're putting your 2026 schedule together, just make sure to mark the dates that we'll be doing
Yep,
the bridge celebration. I think it's the 18th, the weekend of the 18th,
Yeah.
September 18th.
September 18th, okay, great, yeah, that works well for us. It's actually just past the busy season, so we should have some capacity to do something really cool. I just wanted to give you a kind of a sense, now that we have the new ticketing system, we can actually pull this data on the fly, and it just gives you a sense of where we're at. Already in 2025 with the new ticketing system and marketing through Facebook and Google, we're seeing some pretty good numbers. That was an order of magnitude lower last year at this time. So we're really excited. I think we stand a really good chance of exceeding our revenue goal. And now the challenge is to keep the cost goal where we need it. And I think that might be my last slide. So as I alluded to, and I think I've repeated over and over again, we're super excited, honored, and humbled to be part of this experience, to have this treasured asset and have the opportunity to present it to its owners and to its stakeholders here in Cascade Locks. As the great American philosopher Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. That certainly was our experience this year in 2024. We try not to dwell on the negative or dwell on past, but we use those lessons to get better and to know what we can expect. And so it's not the getting punched in the face, it's the how you respond to it, get back in the fight. And that's where we're at right now. And then just the thing I remind myself is, especially if I get down about we're not where I'd like to be, which isn't frequent, but the contract was marathon, we're really just approaching mile 2. So we have a lot of time ahead of us. We are enjoying what we do. We're having a lot of fun. I love coming up to Cascade Locks. I'm excited about the team we have in place, our partnerships with the board and our local stakeholders. So if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Glad we could order up a more mild winter for you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
I had a quick
Don't
question.
think
How
so.
are we on captains, and do we have anybody in the pipeline that's currently working towards that as a goal?
We can talk about.
We have 2 fully qualified captains, and we have one that's in this regard a junior captain. He's competent, but he hasn't seen it all. He hasn't operated everywhere that the boat operates. And part of the training process is to ensure that they, at the minimum, see every place they would ever have to land or operate from. At some point, you have to rely on their qualifications and their background and the fact that they have the license. That those don't come lightly. So, but so the answer to the question is we have 2 competent, one
Getting there.
and would be competent in a pitch, depending on the environment.
I'm gonna have one more question. Oh no, just a comment. If you guys are pushing 13 or 19 employees or more this summer, that puts them at the second or third largest employer in Cascade Locks. So that's commendable for this commission. As that being our main driving mission is to create employment within the district, and this certainly is doing so. So that's one of the most important things to us. And we certainly love to hear that. So it's awesome, guys.
Especially I think considering that the last company had mostly Portland-based
Almost
employees.
exclusively.
Yeah.
Anybody we can get locally,
We'd be thrilled.
there's an advantage to it.
It's a hard, this is a kind of a hard market to operate in. As employers, I'm sure you see it yourselves. The requirement for us to have a Coast Guard credential mariners, I mean, it adds a little bit more to it. It just isn't a lot of industry to poach from or to draw from. So,
Is there something that we could be doing through the schools or through the high school or something to encourage? Could we have an open boat day where we have people come out, kids that are students and high school kids, and like, is there a way to get it? That's one of my favorite things about the boat that we don't talk about is that there are kids that come on there and start as deckhands and end up working on the Columbia River for a living, right? That's a really cool thing that this boat does that we don't always talk about.
Yep.
And I also think it's something that we haven't necessarily explored to its fullest depth. I mean, we really could be known for the fact that we create mariners out here
Yeah.
with this boat. So
Yep.
you wonder if there isn't some opportunities that we couldn't be helpful with as a port in helping you with that, guys. Solves two problems, one, right?
yeah, I think if there was a way for us to brainstorm with you about how to approach like I'm not sure what they call them these days, school resource officers or that sort of thing. A maritime career really works well with kind of that vocational technical student.
Sure.
You know, someone that wants to do something hands-on, they're maybe not thinking about college necessarily after high school. And that's okay, because these jobs are
Especially these days.
well paying. They usually give you a good work-life balance. You get hands-on skills. It's still an apprenticeship model. So it's not, you're just, in a library somewhere reading a book. That they're different jobs, especially for the youth of today, which I mean, kind of gamified and for better or worse, but we're really looking for folks that are hands-on. They like working on engines. They will maybe work on cars in their dad's garage. They're great jobs to come down and see a really big power plant, get a chance to get hands-on with that, and then just be part of the experience. So yeah, I think if you could help us plug that in, we have the resource, and it's just a matter of getting them down to the boat.
I would extend from high school actually to the colleges.
College, yeah.
Because Columbia Village Community College, they have a lot of classes that are more geared towards like, vocational jobs, technical jobs. So that would be a good one. But technically, we're in Napa Community College District, so that could be another one. You guys aren't in that district, just the community itself.
Okay. Yeah.
But as an employer, you guys can probably judge both of those community colleges.
We'd love to do that.
And hiring veterans too.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be a good thing to really kind of go after.
Yes, sir.
In addition to community outreach, last year, the River Share Foundation tried to raise $40,000 for water safety, like having a jet ski that's portable into the river of Cascade Locks.
Okay.
There's been some, they haven't been successful in their first fundraiser with that. I think they only raised like $1,000 on GoFundMe for that. But there has been some conversations from the nonprofit community club and also the local fire department about doing a co-op jet ski that's stationed in the marina. But I'm curious if the stern wheeler would be interested in also having access to that jet ski for maybe inspections around the boat or logistics.
I think. Well, let me kind of put it this way, for the cost of $40,000, you're most of the way towards an asset that would really help us, which would be something like a very small truckable tug, push tug, maybe something 250 horsepower. It wouldn't be as fast as a jet ski, but we could use it for maintenance. We could use it for helping the boat stem into the wind. There's we talked about taking the stern wheeler to Hood River. The challenge for us in Hood River is the mooring and approach. You have to go broadside to the wind. You have to go through the rock jetty to get into the basin, and then we don't really have a really good turning radius. So if things get squirrely for us in there, there's a lot of expensive boats close to board that we would need to worry about. We had, a little truck will tug 250 horsepower. We could just get it dropped in there, push the bow on and be up against the dock. If that would, if you were to say, hey, what's this kind of
I'm trying
asset?
to figure out what type of watercraft would be useful for you, and then seeing the potential for the other the parties involved,
Can I weigh in, please? So I've done a lot of looking into this exact platform, and it's a 20 to 30 foot aluminum monohull with a pushing bow or with knees. So you can come up to any surface and lean on it with the horsepower of the boat without worrying about breaking anything. And then it also has a bow that drops, so you can do a beach recovery. Where, if a kayaker gets out of shape and they're in the mud somewhere, they're ambulatory.
swim that happens, where they swim from Keys into.
Yep. Those are designed to not only just fall onto soil or to, whatever the surface is, but to be stopped at a certain level. Typically, they extend the depth of the deck, just like tailgating your truck. Same process. They come in every size imaginable or imaginable. For us to actually use the boat to help the stern wheeler into or out of a dock, it would be 250 horse outboards, no bigger than that. Plus anything bigger than that gets so outrageously expensive, it's ridiculous. But as an asset as a port asset, you have the ability to safely inspect your bridge bases, shoreline, the docks, or the entrance to the marinas, the locks, everything.
Check out the milfoil areas and all that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I can send you links.
Yeah, I'll email you the
Please
contacts at the 3 different agencies, so maybe we can have a conversation later about it. So.
But if you guys would like to see what I'm talking about, I'll send it to you. Just let me know.
Okay.
It's pretty good stuff. And it would have to be trailerable. That's something that was always part of the process for us. If we can't throw it in the water and recover it when we need it, the cost of maintaining it goes up fivefold. Just having it sit in the water. Especially when it's not necessary. But we would need a place, it would be preferable to have a place to park it where it's.
The city pump that's right by the current boat rack does have space over there, and that's something the city might be willing to look into, storing some sort of watercraft that's kind of co-op owned or used, mutual aid type thing, so.
Be a pretty good asset. Your first responders probably would take advantage of it as well, unless they have something already.
Okay.
Thank you. Are we done? Are we done?
Looks like we're done.
Thank you again.
Thanks,
Really
guys.
appreciate it.
Just
Yeah,
everybody.
thanks for presenting.
Thank you.
Alrighty, we've got David McCurry.
Yeah.
How's everybody doing?
All right.
See you again.
Good.
So far, so good. Okay, well, I'm just coming to do kind of our first stats update on the project. And this is just going to be kind of an intro to what the rest of these will look like. We're going to get a lot done this year. So this is really mostly just kind of setting a tone for kind of the types of things you'd like to see, that we'd like to present. So not too much detail today. We just mostly got started. So just kind of, at a high level summary, my promise to you is to be as transparent and provide as much information as I can so you can understand what we're doing with the money that the state of Oregon has provided to the port, to answer a lot of questions and to really add value to the port. Really to show that we're good stewards of the money that the state has provided, and answer some questions that haven't always been answered, but have been sort of question marks. So I'll just kind of roll right through here and then feel free to stop me. So Next,
Try the-
you want me to?
I
go ahead?
don't want to interrupt him.
Yeah,
Just-
okay. So just scroll down.
To the next page. No?
No.
All right.
The arrow down.
Just below where you're at.
No, it should just be the big next button. Oh,
Oh, is it just the top button, the middle
yeah,
button?
okay.
Gotcha, okay. So there's really kind of five. Oh, I'll do it.
Sorry.
No,
I just wanted to make sure there was. all of you.
Alright. So there's really just kind of five areas of the presentation. Again, I can slow down or speed up and go back if you want to, and feel free to stop. That's no problem at all. So the first part is just a little bit of a dashboard of the project itself, kind of to give you kind of transparency on what we're doing and where we're at. Most of this is gonna look pretty simple because we just got started. And then we'll talk just kind of a reminder on the goals, and then talk about some of the challenges that we will have or have had, which are really essentially not much at all so far. But I want to kind of set the tone for, that's the kinds of things that we want to talk about. What do we find? What kind of trouble have we run into, or what's new, or anything like that. And then talk about some opportunities that are maybe coming or that we realized, and some we'll call wins on the project. Which, as we get deeper and deeper, it'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I'll just jump right in. So this is just like a real high level look at the project. I wanted to put together like a dashboard. And as we go on, and I'll probably provide a little more detail, but essentially, from a budget perspective, the blue, so starting kind of on the left side of the slide, the blue represents money that's just not allocated to anything yet, but it's opportunity in the future to do something. Could be improve lighting, pedestrian safety, whatever it makes the most sense as we go through this, as we identify specific needs and want to try to target some improvements. The green is the money that's been sort of contracted, and the tiny little sliver that has no color to it because we just got started and spent 1% in December last year is just how much has been spent of that green amount. So again, 1%, and we just got started. No issues, no schedule issues, no real risk issues or anything like that. So the milestones, so there's really what I'll call 45 little steps to get to the 7 milestones for the project. So I just put the milestones up there. So the milestone deliverables are sort of really kind of checkpoints in the project, which I'll explain a little more further. Nothing's delayed, nothing's complete. We just started, so we just have 2 in progress and 5 not started. Just those are milestones. That doesn't mean we haven't started the work that leads into the milestone, but like a report, a deliverable of some kind. I'll show you in a second. So we have 10 tasks, 7 are started, and 3 are not started for reasons I'll explain.
The 17,000 has been spent, what was that already spent on?
Yeah, getting the project started up, staff reviewing Bridget God's reports, getting information from ODOT, and setting up models, drawings, and structural models of the bridge. Yeah.
Back on that slide with all the green and yellow dots, where's the green dot stand for? What
Sorry.
stand for?
Let me go back. I got it.
That one, yeah.
Oh,
There's the next one.
this one?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I wanted to do is give you kind of a quick level visual of how are things going. So just being totally transparent on, are we on schedule? Is everything okay? Are there any problems? Not sweeping anything under the rug, just saying this is where we're at. So I just figured that just a green, yellow, red kind of coloring to say, hey, this is how budget is going for project management, schedule, risks, any issues. Are we within scope, or are things starting to creep outside of scope? And our deliverables meeting quality standards. So I put some yellow ones in there, not because they're like, uh-oh, we should be worried, because I don't want the whole thing to be green. And honestly, there's risks when it comes to like field work. So I thought, let's talk about that. So for example, on task 2, survey and mapping, we haven't done the field work yet. When we're starting to coordinate with Parker on when we might do that, probably February. There's always risks when people go out in the field and they're around live traffic. So just being transparent about that. But we have a safety, health, and environment plan to make sure that when people are adjacent to live traffic, there aren't any fatalities or issues or injuries or anything like that. With geotechnical and geologic, of course, when we get to field work there too, again, we're doing things in the field like boring holes, so that carries risk, right? Anything you do in the office doesn't carry a lot of risk, so. Because anymore, it's just muscle strain, or not sitting properly. Yeah, so seismic structural, that's an interesting one. I wanted to share that, building a model of the Bridge of the Gods is actually quite a challenge. A model meaning like a structural computer model. It's not like a physical model you can touch, but it's a mathematical sort of, we'll call it a digital twin of the bridge. But there aren't plans of the existing 3-span truss, which is your logo. There is plans, drawings, engineering drawings from when they were built for the other parts of the bridge. And ODOT did a bunch of work about 2013, 14. And just to go back in a quick history lens, at that time, they were responsible for doing things for the port that they hadn't done. And so I was involved very closely with the port, and I said, you need to be doing this ODOT for the port. And so ODOT was like, oh yeah, they kind of dragged their feet a little bit, but then ultimately we were able to collect some data on the bridge to try to create a structural model. We are doing that now as well. And I mentioned this to Jeremiah, that we leveraged all the work that ODOT has done to date, all the inspections. They actually, at that same time took fisheye lens photos of all the gusset plates on the bridge. So we have like very specific dimensions of the plates and a lot of photos of the bridge. But there still doesn't exist like specific drawings of the bridge to tell you what every piece and part really is. And so we're creating that for you in this contract. So you always have that, and we use that for the other work that we do. So that's why I put the yellow under the 5 and 6, because there's some risk in not getting good information or not enough information, but we've actually been collecting good information so far. Good.
Looking at your schedule overview, in February, it looks like you have bridge radar and mapping.
Yeah.
Is that like drone stuff too?
Yeah, absolutely. So
it's very windy in February, by the way, just like.
Yeah. So. I don't know if you can recenter it just slightly.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. And Rob, I want to make sure. I want to hear what you have to say, especially about the drone stuff. So yes. So this overview of the schedule, this isn't all the detailed critical path method schedule that shows every little activity that we're doing, right? This is just an overview of the activities. I love project management off here because we're always doing it. But this gives you a lens as to the different things, the different elements of the project. And the LiDAR and the mapping that we plan to do when the weather's good in February or March absolutely includes some drone scanning. And like everything that I have ever done on the Bridge of the Gods, as soon as you get somebody involved, they get really excited. So our drone team is very excited about potentially trying out some new technology as well at no additional cost to the project. So we'll be doing an initial scan of the bridge with the drone, and along with that, we'll be taking images of the bridge. And we'll add that to our database of the fisheye lens photos, which are kind of taken up close by a human being. This was 10 years ago. And use that to create the 3D model and drawings for the bridge. And then also, actually, you'll be able to see the bridge and move around in it in 3D, which will be a useful tool in discussing things in the future as well.
It's like AutoCAD for that or something like that.
So typically the DOTs use a program called MicroStation. It just depends. Some local agencies, cities and counties use AutoCAD. We usually use a suite of programs called Bentley Systems. They have a lot of add-ons to what is called MicroStation, which is essentially like AutoCAD for transportation projects. Yeah.
Can we drop like a Godzilla in there and Rampage?
Yeah. And that scanning is actually not just the bridge. It's actually, a lot of it has to do with the geotechnical work that we're going to do with the land side. So we want to understand the slope and shape of the ground around the railroads on both sides, because in an earthquake, those are the vulnerable parts. And they're also the parts that become a real problem for the bridge, because if you get a landslide pushing a pier, that's a huge problem especially for an old bridge. So we're combining that LiDAR and mapping of the geotechnical things to look at the issues related to that close to the bridge, but also like a larger scale, like what's the Bridge of the Gods landslide doing? It's also known as the Bonneville slide. So the big yellow dots there are just field work they're gonna be doing, so talking to Parker about getting those on the calendar soon. So for survey and mapping, that's like we talked about, there's actually physical people going out there too doing survey, the tie the survey and the drone work. So we have that accurately in the 3D world in space. And then the structural monitoring. That is going out and putting gauges on the bridge so we can measure what kind of weights and trucks are going by, so we can translate that to the stress on the bridge. And that'll be interesting results.
That's the most important data to make your assessment on the seismic stuff, besides the modeling.
So we can use structural monitoring to inform seismic analysis, but actually the seismic analysis is mostly geotechnical. It has to do with how big of an earthquake, what kind of earthquake, what will that shaking look like, and how does that impact the bridge? So that's the structural monitoring is more kind of hyper focused on what kind of trucks are going by and how heavy are they. So in the future, we could look at how would the bridge respond in an earthquake by actually putting gauges on the bridge and actually measuring some things about it, which I'll get into later. That's a pretty deep dive, but
Have we not done this structural monitoring, the weight? Before?
Albert, you've probably read everything the port's ever done. I love that. That's great. Yes. And I was
like, I know that we've done.
Yeah.
Other things like.
So I was here. I was involved with that. So what happened was ODOT wasn't really doing something that was in your IGA, intergovernmental agreement with ODOT. They finally started doing it. And then there were some questions about what was the bridge really made of and what was the details when it was constructed, and we didn't have the drawings. So we did a weight load test with ODOT. ODOT really ran the test, collected some data in a very short window and said, yeah, looks good. All our calculations are verified in the field, and therefore let's stick with our legal load limits. Yeah, and that actually ties into the work that happened more recently, which is an interesting point because, you know, as time goes on, the bridge does see some wear and tear. So,
I mean, because we also have received, I guess, reports from you over the years where we even talked about, we don't do any maintenance, the bridge has this much time, and we do maintenance with longer time and blah, blah, blah. I would imagine that some sort of study like what you're talking about would have to play into that, some sort of capacity.
yeah. So actually, can't point, can I? Is there really hard? You guys wouldn't be able to see it, but anyway, our task 5 or 6 is what I just call on the screen structural analysis, which is the non-seismic analysis of the bridge. The end result of that is a more detailed bridge plan, bridge preservation plan, we'll call it.
Gotcha.
And yeah, over the years, I've helped the board understand, starting with the initial conversation about how long will this bridge last, and a lot of commissions want to know.
Right.
You can't really answer that question because no insurance will cover you for that, but you can say, well, what kind of work should you anticipate to have to do to continue to maintain it? And that's a huge part of what we're doing here. And I've done that to a much smaller scale and sort of helped plan things out based on historical data on the bridge specifically, but also bridges similar to it. But this time we're actually doing an actual analysis of the bridge for the pieces and parts that we anticipate are going to need to be repaired. So much better detail, and honestly, that better detail is for you to then go to your partners in the area and say, this is exactly what it is. For example, the states, Oregon and Washington would probably, well, not probably, they would do a certain level of detail to then decide to fund additional work. And so that's what we're doing here, is we're getting you set up for that conversation with the DOTs, maybe the feds, and say, this is real, this is what it is. We've done the engineering, now we need the next step.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you aware of any bridges in the country that are similar to ours, or is there like a group of bridge engineers that are like specialized in 100-year-old bridges or something like that?
So
yourself.
we got the best on this one. I introduced a couple of folks to Jeremiah, but we're going to introduce more people on our team to the staff. One person in particular that comes to mind, I mean, he's 45 years of bridge engineering experience, right? So I'm at 25, Makes me sound old sometimes, but I still got some years left. I think I got 20 left. And we do have a number of folks who are bridge historians, but steel truss experts. The specific individual named John Schmidt, who's my lead structural, he actually has done quite a bit of this. He's worked on the Brooklyn Bridge, just as an example. And the reason that matters is because the way the bridge was built matters in terms of its expected life and like what the issues may be for seismic. So yeah, we got the best without spending too much money. So the plan
There's
is,
no bridge out there that you can think of that's very close to our design.
there actually is a bridge in Quebec that has a storied past.
Okay.
It's quite similar. The Bridge of Gods is unique in a lot of ways. Most bridges are a little different, right? The style and the shape is quite similar. There's a lot of so it's a cantilever steel through truss. And if you look at the historic photos, you'll see that when it was raised, they actually took the middle portion out, put it back in when they raised it. So it's a quite unique bridge. And when we get in later to the modeling and the results from that, we'll get some pictures on the screen and kind of give you a little Bridge 101 on how does this bridge even sort of fit together and balance, because it's a balanced cantilever. So yeah, there are definitely bridges out there that are older than Bridge of the Gods that are the steel through cantilever truss. But this one is also unique, and you know, they're all a little different, to be honest with you. This one especially because it was built by an outfit that doesn't exist, you know. Yeah.
The structural analysis step.
Yeah.
So obviously the bridge, the top part of the bridge, you know, we see it, right?
Mhm.
Structural analysis, is that when you're gonna be getting underwater? Because to me, it seems like that's the scarier part when it comes to seismic activity. So the ground shakes.
Yeah.
What's holding the bridge up is the ground, right? So.
Yeah, so a couple answers to that question. Good question. So the geotechnical work is where we go bore a hole in the ground.
Okay.
And we go deep.
Okay.
As deep as we need to determine like where's rock usually.
Right.
And of course, you know, if you've lived here long enough to know the stories and the history and the sort of the geology, and it's just very unique and challenging and has quite a history. So those geotechnical borings will core rock samples and soil samples down to understand what's underground.
Mm-hmm.
We currently have a draft plan for doing some of that in the water. We may or may not choose to do that. We can talk about that in later meetings, but that's expensive to do in water because you get a barge. But that does tell us kind of rock or ground profile. And it's surprising that soil is highly variable. It's probably one of those variable things that we have to deal with.
Right.
There's all kinds of clays and silts and sands and rocks and gravels and the gorge, if you ever geek out on geology, it has a really interesting geologic past.
Yeah.
So we do need to go deep enough to understand how the ground will shake and how the bridge will be affected by that ground shaking. And also more specifically, what is actually under the pier? Is it on rock? And it's not necessarily on rock. Like Hood River is not on rock. If you've followed that at all, they know it's deep. I mean, it's very deep foundations, but rock is much deeper because of Missoula floods. You know, those came through walls of water that washed out.
Yeah.
And then they eventually left deep soft soils. But the Bridge of the Gods is in a very narrow channel where there's known rock, right? What we don't really know is when the landslide happened, did that eventually all get scoured out back down to bedrock, or is there just a bunch of debris material from that landslide that's just kind of throughout the bedded area, both sides of the river? Yeah, so we'll figure that out with the geotechnical studies.
Okay. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Good question.
Yeah, I mean, having hiked so many different trails and sides over here, I mean, it just seems like obviously a lot of sediment through the river would be moving a lot of the sand and dirt basically.
Mhm.
But man, you go on any of these hikes, you're just stepping up rock the entire time. So hopefully there's a lot of rock out there.
You mean basalt? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know what they are. I just know that when I walk in,
It-
it's sharp rock after sharp rock after
Yeah,
sharp
yeah.
rock.
It's a great question. And the reason I only know that because I mentioned before I have some geology geek friends, right? And so there's quite a crazy history about how geology has affected the gorge and the shape of it, right? The river's older than the mountains.
Yeah.
And it used to be that there were huge lava fissures in Idaho that would flow lava to the Pacific Ocean. So the basalt you see throughout the gorge, actually, a lot of it is lava that flowed through the gorge where the river is.
Yeah.
So that what ended up actually happening was there's layers of basalt and then clay and then basalt and then clay, and it's kind of all over the place.
Well, when that whole mountain came down 700+ years ago,
Yeah,
that is why the river's so narrow right there. So a lot of that is going to be, you know, rocks and stuff that came down
Yeah.
700 years ago, and then they built a bridge on top of it.
Right.
So, but how much of that is earth
yes,
and how much of it's a solid rock hillside? So
yeah, and that's what we'll figure out.
Okay.
And the states are gonna wanna know, did you do that? So
Right.
that's why we're doing it. Yeah, good questions.
yeah,
So-
you don't want to tell them, yeah, we have no idea what's under there.
Yeah. Good questions, and feel free to continue. So anyway, that's the high level schedule overview. We'll keep coming back to this. And the red line is kind of where we are. So yeah, I'll just mention, well, let me just come here because again, there's kind of 3 focus areas of the project. They're not the tasks we're doing, right? Each of the tasks we do, there's some overlapping that meet these sort of focus areas, but it's all about pedestrian safety, understanding seismic vulnerability, assessing that accurately to justify the next thing that the port decides to do, and then the preservation planning. So a better bridge plan to get things closer to the point of shovel ready, so you can say, I'm ready. How can you help? You know, because that's quite common for any of these kinds of projects. You know, and again, giving you the information you need to be able to make that so you can move to the next step. Yeah.
I have a random question. Obviously, the Hood River, they just had their 100-year anniversary, ours is in a couple of years. Was it the same company that built both of them?
I'm not sure there was. I don't think so.
Okay.
But I could be wrong on that. That's actually a good question.
Pretty sure no.
Janice would know, but I don't think that they were.
That's what I'm saying. I think I heard her talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should know that.
Huh.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, because if Hood River wasn't built on rock, it was just built on basically where they got down to.
Yeah, I mean,
That's kind of an insight to potentially what.
potentially, yeah, definitely. And they have different kinds of foundations in converter. I mean, actually, I know quite a bit about the bridge. The piers have different types of foundation, but also the foundations there are different.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So just going forward, yeah, again, those are the focus areas. So everything we're doing is to try to get towards each of these sort of focus areas and goals within each, so. So just key challenges. I mean, it's kind of hard to start up during the holidays, but we did.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I was trying to center it.
It's okay. So just holiday startups, I thought it'd be worth just mentioning that. You know, and I was kind of monitoring the weather as well, not trying to rush the field work, but it would have been great to be getting out there this week, but. So we were focused on longer lead items, and honestly, the structural work is the long lead stuff, right? Everything else is gonna be a little easier to accomplish. And then agency coordination, so this was, you know, this is something that will kind of always be an ongoing thing for any project we do on the bridge. And that the other agencies that would be involved with any work you do, Army Corps, Coast Guard, states, you know, there's a lot of agencies within each state that not even federal, but state agencies on environmental and others. There's a lot of people who touch the land, so any coordination like that. So we've established early communication with both ODOT and WashDOT, just the bridge technical groups, just to let them know what we're doing, remind them, because often many of them have actually come and been part of tours and things, and so we started that early, really restarting the conversation with a lot of people that I worked with in the past. And so in terms of opportunities and wins, so I knew that based on all this past work that I've done with ODOT and the port, that there was quite a bit of data available that we could leverage. So we were successful in getting that from ODOT. So, and this will now be at the end of this, we'll have probably an external hard drive that will say, you know, here is all the data you're going to need to move forward the next step. Data that port didn't have. And this is all, like I mentioned, all the inspection photos and the reports and then an actual 3D model, not a full 3D model, but a sort of a model of the bridge for analysis for the trucks, which led to their load assessment. and geotechnical data. So we actually do this pretty commonly where we get lots of different sources to understand what the geology looks like. So we did that, and next steps, these are the more field things, but the physical things that are kind of easy to see. And again, Parker and I talked earlier today, and we're going to start putting these things actually on the calendar. Inspecting the electrical, to try to bring that up to standard, and hopefully that actually may be the one thing to get shovel ready sooner than anything else, which would be great, and the Coast Guard will be happy too. And that there's a pedestrian lighting aspect to that, so we're also going to do a pedestrian kind of site safety walk and
Yeah.
look at how everything fits together and really make a good assessment of what we need to do to improve that, or what we can do, and maybe steps and phases to do that.
Right.
And then the seismic design criteria memo, which doesn't sound all that exciting, but that's all about saying what level of earthquake are we actually going to take a look at. And this project may look a little different than some other ones that are in the region, because the states have different buckets of money that they can decide what to do with, and they can set high standards. This project we'll talk later about, like, what is the criteria we want to achieve. And that'll be kind of a tough, weird conversation, but it'll be interesting for sure to say, okay, at what level of earthquake do we expect different results from the bridge? So we'll do that and get state buy-in, which will be nice. And then, yeah, again, the surveys and the setting the monitoring on the bridge is kind of coming up. So.
For the same, oh, so go ahead.
I was just gonna ask if on any of those given dates, will you be here during that time too?
Yeah.
Cause we're trying to schedule possibly a coincidental visit with Oregon Bungee to come out while you're here, so they can do all their measurements and maybe ask questions, or you can see what their plans are.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I can come out frequently whenever needed for sure.
But
Yeah.
if you're already gonna be here, we
Yeah.
can try to get them to come around the same time.
Let's do that.
When you jumping into some kind of novel for bridge engineering.
Hey, I'm not afraid of it. So, not a bad thing for a bridge engineer. So.
You can do it.
I haven't done it yet.
Parker and I will watch from the bridge.
That'll be interesting.
I was gonna ask, when it comes to the seismic design criteria memo, when you're coming up with that criteria, I guess there's a lot of potential factors, right? Like, we know that there's a lot of seismic activity that happens down at the coast. But will this criteria basically assess if it's down at the coast and it's an X size on the Richter scale? What would that assess? What would that look like here? Or are you thinking if a volcano blew up from, like, Mount Hood blew up, whatever, like what type of reverberations that would have with the land over here?
Yeah.
Because there's not a plate here that would actually go. It would be at the coast, or it would be a volcano that blows, right?
So
We do have
not
a plan.
scary, but there are
We do.
faults in all over the land. It's where we live. There's quite a history of, and it's not just here. There's many places in the world where there are faults, and they're just places where the earth has been smushed together. And after a certain amount of time, when you put two rocks together and they want to go different directions, eventually they slip.
Right.
So there's quite a science and like a whole knowledge base behind mapping of faults. So our geotechnical engineers are looking at this already. Where are the faults within this area?
Okay.
And what are the larger faults, the subduction zone, the Juan de Fuca plate? And actually, and I've mentioned this before, Jeremiah might remember that, there is a point at which the sort of the intensity of ground shaking from the Juan de Fuca plate out in the ocean, dipping under the North American continent, that ground shaking actually is not as severe as maybe a local fault. Now, I personally don't know where the local faults are, but we'll find out.
Right.
And you'll know.
Should be one in Parkdale.
Yeah. But the local faults that are not big, they create different types of ground shaking.
Yeah.
So usually the local faults, they create sort of smaller, intense like shaking. Whereas the big Juan de Fuca subduction zone you hear is the big one everybody talks about, creates kind of more of a long swaying motion. And so those different types of earthquakes affect different types of structures.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like a foray into how will the Bridge of the Gods act when there's an earthquake, right?
Yeah.
And so there's maps in terms of how we analyze the bridge for those earthquakes.
Okay.
That have already been developed, and there's also mapping of the faults, and our geotech will tell you exactly what the peak ground acceleration is. So at what point does the ground accelerate the most at the Bridge of the Gods? And then we actually also create sort of an input into our analysis that takes all those things into effect and says, this is the signal that we put into our modeling, that we shape the bridge like in a digital way, and we say, okay, and this is how the bridge is going to respond. So yeah, we're going to get deep into that if you want at any point in the future, and it's interesting.
Yeah.
I can geek out on it all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so then that seismic design criteria will take every potential shake
Yeah.
into consideration.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's built up a knowledge base. We're not starting from scratch.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's a whole industry. I mean, we design new bridges. We have maps that demonstrate to what level should the bridge be designed to, and it diminishes as you get away from the coast.
Mhm.
Yeah, but then eventually you could get somewhere where there's hotspots of earthquakes and things like that. Yeah.
And will the design criteria step inform the in-water work in terms of where the borings will be, or are they sort of independently developed projects?
That's a really good question, Genevieve. Thank you. So where we are now is kind of what I would call, is really preliminary analysis and evaluation of the bridge. If you were to go all the way to final design and construction of seismic retrofit, you would definitely want to make sure you have done those in-water borings so that you have a very clear and clean geologic profile. You know where rock's at, you know how deep it is, and you can get a pretty precise number for the retrofit. We can get pretty close without doing in-water work and just doing borings on the land side, which is much more cost effective.
Okay.
And as we get closer to that decision point, I'll give you better, more detailed information on.
Okay.
Because the mapping and actually, interestingly, historic photos tell us a lot about what's out there.
Yeah.
And we may be able to get pretty close without, because the piers aren't out in the middle of the river.
Right.
Right. So we kind of have a general idea of how ground maybe slopes based on what we have so far.
And that's really what we have to look forward to for the next 2 to 4 years, is David being here every month, every Wednesday, me and you, but coming to those decision points as we get educated from the information that we pull back. So just like he said, right, we did the borings over here, we found this information, now David comes back and says, hey, there's X million dollars left, do we want to spend it on this? We really could spend it on getting in the water now and doing those borings. And that's the sort of decisions that every month for the next 2 to 4 years are going to land at your guys' plate is, we could go this direction, or this direction. How do we want to spend the money? $6 million seems like a small project when we start throwing numbers around at the government level, but it's a very big project for Cascade Locks. It's the biggest project we've ever undertaken, certainly the biggest project on that bridge. And so it's got a lot of levels to it, and it's going to take a lot of decision making, and it's a heavy lift. It's a heavy lift, and then
Good thing we got such a short.
that's right. Thank you.
So first of all, every time you come in, I always walk away with a lot more knowledge, so thank you. I appreciate the information you share. As it relates to some of the budget stuff, so when I look at the schedule, we'll have an action plan by the end of the year. End of 2025, we'll have pretty clear direction of what our next kind of steps are, maintenance and projects to work on. Will there be any actions taken early? Like I see lighting being done like mid-year. Would we just get the report and then we hold and then we take action later on?
We could take action sooner. Again, that's one thing that is easier to drive to completion to construction. There's a lot of other potential opportunities too. Like we could do some targeted painting. We could do
Rust
some
prevention or something like that.
And we could do some repairs potentially for things that need more immediate attention, which we haven't identified anything right now. That's been taken care of already. But there is opportunity even this year to make decisions about what we need to do next year with the remaining funds.
And then as it relates to the funds, this 2.5 million is pretty much just encompassing the work that you've got called out for 2025 as it relates to evaluation and assessment with no action being taken.
And if you mean actions in terms of actual construction?
Or repair work or things like that.
Correct.
Okay. And then to what Jeremiah was saying, as it relates to you being around for several years, and thank you for being available for multiple years. Is there a timeline on when we need to spend the 6 million? Is there a certain limit that it can spend?
Didn't we say, I think we got it to like
5
10,
years.
is it 5 or 10?
I think it's 5.
5,
And how far?
5-year project.
6 months.
Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
Very reason.
Did we get it to 5?
I think so. Could be wrong. I'll have to check myself.
It's a 4. No, it came back with a really short window, and I thought I came back with a really long window, and I got it, but 5 seems like the right window, so.
Yeah.
maybe-
So then my last question is that based on this, it looks like we have $3.4 million potential actually to make some improvements or repairs or mitigation work. Is that kind of?
That's where we are right now,
Yeah.
yeah, depending on what the port side wants to do, the information that we provide. Yeah,
But if we go and start doing in-water drilling or something, that would, come out of that 3.4
Yes.
to do those additional.
yes. Correct. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Any questions? Appreciate it.
We'll see you next month, and I'll
Okay.
see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thank you for your
Thanks, David.
presentation.
Thank you, David. No problem. Thanks, David. Drive safely.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioner comments and some committee reports. So start on flying over there, with Mr. John.
Let's see. Say the having Xtapa open up, that was an awesome thing. It was really interesting to see everybody attending their soft opening. We have them around. Thanks to the team that's been working hard for everything. I was telling Parker for all the work and getting them up and running and all that. And then of course the rest of the core team with all the activities you guys are doing. It's astounding to be this organized and making this much ground in our different projects. And I really commend you guys for doing outstanding work. A team was sitting with you. So that's all.
Thank you. Let's see, yeah, I'm excited about next top opening finally. I believe that's the 25th opening.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, that's the 20, was that 21st? 22nd, 10:45.
And then potentially
Either
a
be square.
cutting event.
Yes.
Later
Yep.
this week, so, yeah, also thank you to MD and staff for getting our grant program set up.
Yeah.
And I received it on the website today, so all we gotta do is, spread the word a little bit
Yeah.
and see what kind of impacts we can make there. So thank you for getting that all organized. I recently attended Hood River County Commission meeting, and I was appointed to the ODOT Region 1 Act.
Oh, that's great.
Position. There's two representatives for Hood River County. Myself and Jody Gates from Big Winds and Urban E-Bikes are serving on that.
That's great.
So I think it's a good collection of experience with the, transportation. Some of the things that we talked about at the River County Commission was improving public transportation, more cat bus stops, and potentially some airport transportation too. The other thing is Hood River Energy Council. I joined that in December. We're having a meeting in March, and then my next ODOT meeting is February 3rd for the Region 1 area. I'm also going to the SDO conference in February in Bend, so get connected to the internet there. And as far as events in town next week is an interesting one. Ashley is about to end up with Oregon State University Extension Program, and they're bringing back 4-H to Cascade Locks, and they're called Clover Buds.
That's cool.
Towards kids between ages 5 and 8, and it's only $30 or per kid or $60 for a family. So I encourage anyone to go attend that on Tuesday, January 28th. You'll learn all sorts of stuff from STEM programs, health and fitness, creative art stuff, outdoor adventures, plants and animals. So that is all I have to say.
All right.
I want to say thanks to Paul Bright for his comments about the library. Those are super fun additions to any community, so hopefully we can get a couple of those popping up over here. Thanks to Jim and Steve from Jetty Light for their report. Thank you, Commissioner McCurry, for your report. As Commissioner Don said, I also always come away with more on knowledge than what I had before, so I appreciate that. And thank you to Denise and Baker for her comments about Main Street. Yeah, I was able to attend that Ixtapa opening, and that place is lovely. I going in there, it felt like all of the interior was completely redone, like the walls and the ceilings, wasn't it? No, it just looks.
It's been cleaned up
Surprising.
considerably.
Yeah, it looks brand new. Comment on the fact that, are those, Bernard Seeger is like, are those new? Those beams, did they put those beams in there?
It looked
It's
new.
all,
So,
it's all original, it just was shown off so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looked really good. I did finally have a chance to go check out the new bridge sign on the way, so it looks great. It's good stuff. Also, yeah, thanks to the team for the grant program. As you guys know, it was always super like personal and like just felt like a really great thing for the community, and it's really good to finally see it out there. So thank you very much for that. And also, thanks for continuing to work on the generator. I know that we all wish it would have been done by now, but we'll have some more things to talk about. But fortunately, as Brad said earlier, we have not had to see that snow yet. Which is
Holding off for it.
very, very honoring to me. But in addition to community events that Rob mentioned, there is a bingo tomorrow from supporting the Cascade Locks PTO grant teacher organization, and will be at Thunder Island tomorrow night. And that's it for me. All right.
First, I'd like to thank Jetty Light and Dave McCurry for coming out to present tonight. It was all very informative. Agree with everyone about the Ixtapa soft opening. It was awesome. I gorged on guacamole. I do want to say a quick thank you to the Old Port for brokering that deal, and getting Ixtapa in the door. So exciting stuff. Looking forward to the upcoming deal for Flex 6. We can finally lay that one to rest soon. So that's really exciting. Also looking forward to our annual planning coming up, the SDAO conference, and potentially attending the town hall with Senator Merkley this weekend. So lots of activity coming up in the next few weeks. As I asked Dave McCurry earlier, Oregon Bungee is trying to schedule a visit soon to get their do all of their measurements and just see the bridge. So I encourage them to schedule that visit around the time that our bridge engineers will be here. Other bridge planning events, subcommittee report is I know that we are looking at hiring like basically an official party planner. I always split his name, always slips.
Jason McComas.
Jason McComas from PCT days may be interested in helping us with all the logistics to planning a big celebration. So excited about that possibility and getting a proposal from him hopefully soon. And then on the museum subcommittee, we have a fundraiser coming up at TIB, a community night. It's on February 26th, so it's a bit down the road, got about a month. We haven't planned any activities or fundraising yet, so since we know PTO is doing bingo, we might try to do something different. So if you guys have any suggestions of what could draw in some funds and also be fun for everybody, we're all ears.
Yeah, I can talk to you about something like that separately after this.
Okay.
Cool.
Meets everything.
Okay, well, once again, you were all said already. And I'll just echo what they said. The stuff was great. What a margarita. Those are pretty amazing. Looking forward to, this year, all the things that are going to happen. We'll be also attending the SDAO conference this month. And do we have a final date on our planning session?
February 12th.
24th?
12th.
12th, February 12th.
6 to 10?
February 12th, okay. Good, I got that, great.
I have it next to
but I will.
It's gonna be great, but yeah, I'm just astounded by the caliber of questions that all of our planners and other presenters are confronted with, so kudos to all of you with your good research and everything. Looking forward to the things happening with our grant program, seeing that moving forward. Hopefully that'll yield some great results for making things happen here in town. But yeah, things are happening. We got Flex 6 getting concluded finally. You know, it's all about next steps. Got Ixtapa coming in. It'll be great to see. I'm assuming at some point this year we'll hear more about what's going on with ACL and how that's progressing, and looking forward to seeing the activity here in our community. So new jobs coming to town, and business is growing and hopefully growing, you know. So anyway, it's all good. We're gonna have a jam-packed year, I think. All right, with that, we'll move on to the executive director report.
Go first, or you can go first, Mark.
Okay. I haven't seen you guys
Real
in,
quick, just one quick thing. Art show, both February 1st, actual at the museum. The what do you call it? The
Columbia Museum.
Museum, yeah.
Columbia Gordon Museum. And also there will be an art show this weekend at Gorge's, which is called Love at First Sight, which should be interesting. It's all dogs and cats, and some of the proceeds will be going to the Humane Society.
Love
So
it. Awesome.
great fun activities to you know, culturally enrich yourselves and hopefully share the wealth
Yeah.
with some people. So anyway, with that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's right. Thank you, guys. It's been a while since I've seen you. There's this is not going to be everything that we've done, but I believe you got an update last commission meeting for me. But so this last couple of weeks, the final touches on Ixtapa interior needs, which was lighting, some painting, removing some unused visible wires from the old sound system, little things that obviously had a big impact. And I really appreciate all the kind words. We picked up some new signs for the Herman Creek Business Park tenants to better articulate what buildings they are in and to accommodate space so we could fit everybody on that sign board.
Is that the one at the end of Herman Creek?
Correct.
That doesn't work?
Yes, so that'd be like where land mass is, grain, integrative health, and
Are those all updated? Because I know I went there about a month ago and they weren't.
they just got installed today. Yeah, just got installed today, and then we'll put some more in-depth numbers, or I think just bigger numbers above all their doorways.
Okay.
That'll help folks get to those locations as they need to. We are starting to do some of the big quotes for the events remodel stuff that we're doing. Janetta's been putting in a lot of work there for some new benches and remodeling some stuff inside House 3, and some one small remodel project for the museum office. I think we'll bring in some drywall finishers to make sure that gets done right. We've been starting our new year shop organization and inventory in the shop. We got a lot of stuff, and it's good to know what we have and what we need to have for the upcoming season here. I got to meet with Steve Caputo last week. I've been getting to know him over the months here, and I'm really looking forward to working with them and the professionalism that he'll bring to the boat. And we did some preseason introductions with CGRA and some of their new heads there, and I felt very good about it. It was a very good meeting. And then continuing to work on integrating Gusto for our new scheduling and payroll software. Those are the big ones for me.
And I'm mixed with the Jeremiah, so you guys probably know, I go to Easy Climb like all the time, sometimes twice a day, because it's a great place to get your dog to run around and get really tired. But when I've actually, every time I've gone out there, there's been like just random debris, like just trash. So either the trash can like lid blew off and like the wind will take it away, or people just not hearing about it. How often do we, I know that Keep Cascade Locks Clean, that group went down to Easy Climb and did some cleanup. But how often do we get to go down there? And then what I actually brought to Jeremiah is like, hey, people get some tickets, can we have them actually pay for their ticket by like cleanup, or could we work with like sheriff department or whatever? Not that, I don't know. I just want to make sure that we keep it clean. It's a nice area.
I'll make sure we put a better effort in out there. And I know I kind of myself take care of the Herman Creek area, and the guys kind of split up the other two areas, but we'll make sure that we're doing a better job there. We shouldn't be seeing trash.
No, it looks lovely. It's just every now and then you go out there and you're just like, oh, there's like a random cigarette butt here, or there's like some trash that flew out of the trash can. It's like shit out and about. So like whenever I'm out there, I go and pick it up. It's no big deal.
Well, as somebody who's there twice a day, would you feel pointing the stick?
Yeah. We're gonna get a pointy stick.
I got
Get one for you right away.
So we appreciate all the help out there. It's a big space. And
Yeah.
the guys tend to, when they go out there, it's, you know, driving around, making sure there's nobody at Blackberry Beach is really the big problem one for us.
And our frequency out there is considerably less in the winter. We have a pretty consistent rotation during the summer, just get so much more use. We have extra people on staff because we hire our summer staff and stuff. So it gets a little more rotation in the winter. It does get flipped out there a little less often.
No, it's like more often than not, it's absolutely lovely out there. I love it out there. Everybody knows that. It's more just like, I was wondering, like, how often are we able to go out there? And then is there a way that we can basically take that time commitment off of you guys and put it somewhere, like on someone else? That's why I was like, hey, if the sheriff's gonna be here more often and giving people tickets, can they?
Cascade Locks work crew.
Work crew. Yeah,
I'd be happy to help facilitate anywhere if that got assigned to us.
Yeah.
Or invite Cascade Locks cleaning group to a meeting here and see if they'd like to get into a routine schedule or something.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, I don't want more work on you guys. I was just kind of curious.
The trash pickup is, in the winter, is probably less like twice a month.
No, we are out there at least once a week. Our business park trash cans oftentimes get used as I used to joke around, it's kind of a service we offer, where that's where folks' extra bags end up, is in our trash cans out there. We leave them there so things don't get spread around. But that's more often than not, we're out there emptying those full cans at least once a week. And then that's more than likely the trash that ends up getting blown about is squirrels get in there, or can lid flies off, and we get some animals that do some scavenging.
Yeah, for sure.
And
then when February hits, it finally gets windy. Who knows?
But we're not watching.
One thing I forgot to mention in the comments is Todd, our maintenance manager, retired, so I just wanted to send a big thank you for Todd for his years of service to the port, making it all operating well and beautiful. So
he'll be missed. I'm sure we'll get to see Todd. He'll come down and play some cards every now and then, but he's ready for retirement. I'm gonna congratulate him 100%. Todd played a big role in my life.
Nice.
That's very happy to see him leave happy.
Before we finish up with maintenance and operations really, I'm going to tease this a little bit. Something we'll probably see come budget time. I can say without a doubt that the operations manager is probably the most difficult position at the port. It's definitely the one that takes the burden of at least the manual. I would say the manual labor, but you do a tremendous amount of administrative work as well. We are going to look for opportunities now that Todd is gone, and that has Parker with another 2 direct reports, probably 3 or 4 in the summer, right? As well as the 15 that he had, or how many got the bridge now? 9, 8, something like that. So we will be looking at some point in time in the next budget season to bring some sort of position on that adds one more layer between Parker and the bridge. Undoubtedly it ends at somebody. If it isn't Parker, it's me, right? But we need one more layer that keeps Parker not having to spend his evenings in the bridge. He missed the last meeting because of that. I know he spent the night up there a couple of times. And it's when I was in that position, I had a little more room to do that because I had a Todd in between me and maintenance. Without that layer, that job is going to be too big. So it's something that we'll get through the rest of this year. this fiscal year, but it's something we're gonna need to look at going into the next fiscal year.
And an e-bike, so you can get past all those.
Thankfully, you know,
all
I,
the low cars.
we've got a lot of great new bridge folks, but I've inherited a really great team. That this job would be leaps and bounds more difficult without that.
Yeah.
That's, that, I can't say how much I rely on those guys.
You're up.
Let me go, okay. Just a couple of highlights for you. I won't go over everything that's in your packet, but we have been spending, you know, when Steve Caputo was talking about going hand over hand through every system in the boat, it rang a bell. I've been working a lot with Marina and Co, kind of going hand over hand in every aspect of our finance accounting systems and finding efficiencies. Jeremiah and I and Matt have been working really hard on finding ways that we can automate a lot of our systems and eliminate some wasted time and money on some of our accounting systems. And that's been a big lift. It will result, we promise, in quarterly financial statements that you can really be able to yourselves feel like you're going hand over hand through the finance side of the port. I'm really encouraged by a lot of the milestones that we've already achieved. One of them, as Parker mentioned, is moving to a new payroll system that automates our not only our payroll, but also our state and federal tax payments that occur every payroll. And today we are working on the PERS payment part of that, automating that part of the system, which is cutting down hours significantly on that aspect of our finances.
That also moves the strategic, I don't mean to interrupt you, but it also moves the strategic business plan forward. That's a directive that came straight from the commission that you wanted to see technological advancement as well as automation in the systems that we're using. This is a direct result of that.
Yeah. Also wanted to mention, yes, thank you, Albert, for the thank you. The grant program is live. The application is open. We have received one complete application that has been forwarded to the MCED team for scoring. And you'll be hearing within a couple of weeks from them on that. Really want to encourage everybody in the community to take a look at our website, look at the grant information. There's a little video at the bottom of the grant page that's really sort of our webinar that gives a lot of really good information on what potential applicants should be thinking about as they're putting together an application. We also have the application questions themselves already on the website, so you can study the notes before you take the test. And we really just want to encourage everybody to take a look, really look at the strategic business plan and find where in our port strategic business plan your project lives and can contribute to the success of the community and the plan. So I've been fielding a number of questions and they're all fantastic questions. And I really am very encouraged by how the grant program is working. I attended myself the training session for the Main Street grant program and have had some conversations on that as well. So I feel like we can help with that. Marina and Co is working on our quarterly tax filings right now for last quarter, and we'll be able to report on that being complete by your next meeting. Wanted to let you know that I have submitted a letter of intent to the Travel Oregon Competitive Grant Program with an ask for $150,000 to fund the pre-construction engineering and some of the, I should say, some of the pre-construction and planning development work for the campground. The commission directed staff to move forward with that at the last meeting. And so that opportunity was sitting there and getting ready to close. We went ahead and submitted our letter of intent. The letter of intent is just one step in a two-step process. They actually have to invite you to apply. We may not be invited to apply, but we threw our hat in the ring for that. So I wanted to let you know that solid work is moving forward on that. Also wanted to commend the work work of Janetta, our events manager, who is also looking for efficiencies and maximizing revenues. She is working on a project that I asked her to start last summer, seeing how much time went into moving all of the chairs back and forth between the weddings on the island, which is usually, 100 or some chairs have to be put on racks, moved, and then moved back and forth. And there's got to, my direction to Janetta was there's got to be a better way. And she said, oh yeah, there is a better way. And I know what it is. And I'll tell you what it is right now. And so she is working on moving forward with some construction of some benches out there. And she's doing a really great job. She's currently pricing the materials out for that. I also want to commend the work of Joanne Wallace, who is our finance specialist one, and she's really our lead on the marina situation, all ins and outs of the marina. And she and I have been working on updating the marina rules and regs and the marina moorage agreement to bring it up to our current needs. And so I really wanted to give her a shout out for the work that she's done on that. She really knows the marina very, very well, knows all of our tenants, and is just doing really great work and bringing that all up to speed. So across the board, everybody's doing really cool work right now in this quote unquote slow season. Is actually a very, very busy time for us in the office. But all of this work is in place to make the summer season better and more profitable for the port. So that's my report.
I have a quick question about the grant program.
Yes.
So you said one person already submitted.
Yes.
Once McKenna does their scoring, what's the cadence that we should expect? Is it that we should expect like a batch per month or every quarter?
I wish I could answer. Yeah, I wish I could answer that question, and we'll see. It really kind of depends on the volume that we end up receiving. Like I said, just today we received our first complete application ready for scoring, but that's it. And so, I can't really say if we'll have batches and batches of them or not. The grant portal will remain open until all of the grant funds are expended or the end of the fiscal year, whichever comes first. And so it kind of all depends on who gets what successful asks in first, right? So
yeah, I guess I was just curious if like we should expect if one person submits, McKenna does their review and they come to us, is it?
I won't hold it.
Like,
yeah.
Like when I said batches, it was more like, should we expect this one plus whoever submits between now and let's say the end of February? Should we expect that in March, like in batches like that, or is it?
I wouldn't hold one back.
So I'm gonna interrupt
Yeah.
because I think this is a fair discussion to have. I brought the same thing up today. And I think it depends a little bit on the philosophy of this commission, and I think it's worth a discussion. If we bring them as they come, one at a time or two at a time, maybe another one shows up, right? And we're doing them as they come. The commission is going to find themselves in a position where there isn't necessarily competition, right? It's going to be like, well, this is what we got. Why wouldn't we approve it?
Right.
There's multiple to look at. So I think that there is some direction from the commission on, would you like to see 1, 2, or 3 at a time? Do you want us to group them together? Do you want it to be, first early bird gets the worm type of situation? This is the first one that got, so it's the first one you're going to see. You don't know what you're comparing it against, so why wouldn't you give, right? There is some sort of direction that we could probably use on that. Me and Genevieve between ourselves sort of went, well, it kind of just makes sense as they come in, we take them, especially this first round. We don't know how many we're going to get and how much money, but I definitely see the thought behind, okay, I have this one in front of me. I don't know what's coming behind it, right? So I think we would like the commission's philosophy sort of on, do you want us to hold 2 or 3 of them together until we wait? How long do we wait for 2 to 3 to come?
Quarterly or?
Yeah, do we do it quarterly? Do we do it? This year it's a little tough, right? Because it took so long. It happened very fast. It took so long to stand the program up, et cetera, that we're a little behind the 8 ball on it. So this year's a little bit different than maybe the years coming forward, but I think I would like some direction on that. So that we don't have that conversation at the next meeting and we only have one and you guys are saying, well, what comes behind this? And
the one big deadline for the grant application that might drive the timing of the applications is that the projects have to be complete by December 31st of this year. And so anything that anybody's applying for, they have to be able to wrap it up this year. And then the reports that you'll be getting will be, for those large grants that are awarded over 50,000, those folks are required to report to you during public session. And we would like to do those January, February, so that you have all of your data in before your budget planning session for the next year, if you choose to continue
So,
with the
couple of
grant
these
program.
apps may have their own timeline. I mean, they might have a start date if they're
Yeah.
just, for instance, opening a business or something like that. They may have a timeline that's, you know, they're gonna open it on this date, which may drive to
Right.
some degree our grant process.
Right.
Because if they want to start in, you know, March, obviously they're gonna
Yeah.
want that money as soon as they can get it. So,
Right.
you know, if us holding it until almost the end of the fiscal year, and then shortening that timeline at the end in December,
Which we
considering,
would
so,
want to do, right.
yeah, so.
I was gonna say, it almost seems like, because of the kind of when it's gotta be, project's gotta be done, well, I don't have time for that, I'd probably say once a month. We review whatever we've got, maybe not review them as they come in, but at least they're grouped up by.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, I think generally we'll just bring you what we've got, what's come down the pipeline that month. Not necessarily know what's coming, and we'll show you what we've got.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously like pros and cons here either way, right?
Right.
Like, they come in, we look at it, right, cool, go on. But I'm just thinking from like a resource standpoint, like if McKenna is kind of like piecemealing everyone that comes in, that's probably gonna take more of their time than if they just sit on a batch until like a week before they're due to us and they just do all of them that week or however, you know, just for like context. But yeah,
Our agreement with MCED, they have 30 days to, upon receipt of the application from us, the first step is staff certifies that the application is complete and that all of the required documents have been included. Send that to MCED. That kind of starts the clock. That MCED has 30 days then to get to you their score of that application. So
We don't get any benefits for them batching, it's a flat rate of what we're paying.
right.
So there's no.
It's a percentage of the
compensation, so
fund. Yeah.
if they batch it within their 30 days, good on them, or if they do onesie twosie, good on them.
Yeah, okay.
Question for you, Genevieve, as it relates to the marina.
Yeah.
Since we're doing some of that, are we at all raising the rates to be market value?
We're going to take a look at all of the fees throughout the park. From camping to bridge tolls to marina to every single thing that we can charge for. We'll provide you with a market rate of what other marinas are charging, what other bridges are charging, what other campgrounds are charging. We charge for making copies, we charge for all of our fees that we have. And the plan is to bring you in a schedule that shows a cost of a yearly increase to that. Because what we're running into is that we go years without updating them, and then it also becomes painful because we want to make a pretty decent sized leap. So what we'd like to do is create a master fee schedule that has an increase that happens every single year, and it's just, you guys don't even have to pass it. You just pass the schedule as it is, and then every year we'll come and say, do we want to move forward with the increase? That way you guys aren't always on the hook and end up in the newspaper for every time the cost goes up on something. Right? It's just already sort of built into it. You guys now have the opportunity to say, no, we're not raising this fee or that fee, a bridge toll, a campground toll, or et cetera. But we do want to get something that sort of projects out for the next 5 years. So that.
And we'll give you market rates.
And we need to get market rates against other marinas, against other campgrounds, et cetera.
We'll give you like, how many people are on the wait list, what are the comps, all that as you're going forward, making those decisions on almost every one of those line items in the master rate and fee schedule.
Awesome. Going back to the grant program, so I don't know if we officially aligned on what is it just gonna be once a month? You guys just send us what comes through for that month?
I think it sounds like it based on timeline is. This is what we've got for February. Let's see what happens. I think so. I think we will bring them to you as they come. I mean, it's your guys' philosophy.
If we receive more than one in a month,
Yeah, you saw one.
we only have one in a month.
Get 3 tomorrow.
Yeah, totally.
And I wouldn't want to hold that one back to wait for more applications because we don't know when they're coming.
I think potentially next year when we have a longer timeline, that
Yeah,
it could come more in batches, like we're gonna review them at this date, this date, and this date. So get your time, get your stuff in before then. Then we have some batches to look at, but maybe not this year.
Well, how about this as a compromise, because I kind of hear what you're saying, I'm interpreting, let me just say, I'm interpreting. What if we were to say the first review by the commissioner is in March? So it gives a little more, January, February, and then March meeting be the first one, then after that, it's
mhm.
give them a month repetition. That allows more to come in during this time frame. So we, since it is late, some people aren't prepared to fill out their grants right away, and then maybe then gives us a couple more to choose. But then again, we're not getting to a point where we're backing people against that deadline when it comes. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, I think so. I think just for me, it was more just like, what is this gonna look like? Is it just gonna be kind of piecemeal one-offs, or are we gonna see a cadence? So for me, I think that works perfectly fine.
So do we want to wait for the first one to see him in March, or do you have a thoughts?
Again, it kind of depends on how things are coming in. The kid has 30 days, like I said, to review this application that was just submitted to January 21st. So it's likely that we wouldn't have their scoring memo ready for you until the first meeting in March anyway. But then on the other side, we don't really want to, now that we've issued our press release and the rules are the rules, and the rules were that the applications would be accepted on a rolling basis, up until those dates. We kind of want to not change that midstream.
I don't think we'll be changing it. It's more just like, what is the timeline for our own review?
Yeah, I think you'll see the first.
It's gonna be open, so it's not open anymore, but it's more like March, the first meeting in March, whenever we'll see everything from when it launched until what we have.
Yeah, and right now I can't tell you that's only one application.
So
Yeah.
comes through
Yeah.
by March 1st.
Right.
Me in March, then that'll be
Yeah.
what we review then.
Right.
And then if there's anything next in April, then.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
This was very similar to our conversation today.
And it kind of depends on how many applications we get.
It doesn't matter, like it
Yeah.
could be, March 1, we only see
Yeah.
one, and then April 1st, we see like
Right.
5. Who knows?
Hopefully we'll see more than one, but we've
Yeah.
received one, so that's a
Good.
success.
That's good. That's good.
So you had more report?
I think that's it. Jeremiah's.
Yeah, I'll try to zip through mine real quick. Working on the Flex One building and getting that space filled. Thought I had it, ran into a bit of trouble with that, but miraculously something kind of worked out today. So I think I'll have something for you in the near future, and for an existing tenant too. So for an expansion, so that could be really cool. We met with Frame and the city to discuss the wastewater treatment facility. They're looking at some future expansion in that Flex 6 building that could have an effect of their wastewater treatment facility. I don't know what role the port is going to play in that fully. But I know the city doesn't have the funds or the staff in order to keep that project moving forward. I also know that Frame is eager to make some things happen. And so we will likely be playing the middleman that removes roadblocks, which is, kind of what we do. So more to come on that, but learning lots about wastewater treatment facilities. Had our weekly Bridge of the Gods, or no, not weekly Bridge of the Gods means I did. We're meeting with David weekly now. But I was going to say the Bridge of the Gods Centennial. One of the things that came up in there is they would like to get support from elected officials to potentially make appearances at that, clear up to potentially the governor. Our quickest route to the governor is probably through our lobbyists. And so in order to direct my lobbyists to do that, I need to bring that to this commission. The Centennial does not have the ability to direct our to direct Dan. So if that's something that we would like him to work on, is to start championing that project and that idea, then they would love that.
The idea behind that is that the original bridge celebration, when it first opened in 1926, was attended and had speeches given by both Washington and Oregon governors. So to be able to recreate something like that would be pretty special.
Yeah. We'll be like getting Washington representative as well.
You would work on.
Yeah,
board.
So should we enter a motion to,
I think a consensus is fine. Just submit it.
Also, well, can we include like a jet flyover in that tasking for him too? Application process to the National Guard, I guess, and they'll take requests for special event flyovers. And there's just an application process, so.
Next best thing to apply
through
under.
federal government websites.
Are you guys comfortable with me managing Dan Marr's workload in regards to the Bridge Centennial?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Then we will bring him on as a resource. Awesome.
It's September 2026, right?
Flex 6 discussion with Tommy and Matt Apkin. We're very close on having the lease done for that. I was hoping today, going to be at the next meeting, but we'll be going over a lease for Flex 6 at the next meeting, which is exciting. CGRA has all new leadership. They came in and we met with them. That was mostly led by Genevieve and Parker and Janetta, but it was nice to shake their hands and see the direction that they're going. It was also good for us to sort of start anew as a 15-20 year relationship, and to have brand new faces in there. We were able to sort of talk about some of the pains that we have, and they were starting to talk about some of the exciting ideas that they have. And I think we both walked away with a better sort of understanding of where both of us were coming from. So that was really good.
Is the new leadership from the area? Portland?
Yeah.
Portland, not our area, but local to their field.
Certainly more receptive to some of the pain points that we had, and also the different users that use that area. And we heard a lot less of, well, that's the way we've always done it. It was a lot more, oh, cool, we can work with that, which was nice. It was nice to not have to navigate, the history of it. As you may have, is this for me?
Yeah, just read the top one.
Okay. As you may have heard, I attended the city council meeting. The court-funded grant program, as we've been working through it over the last year, it's come up a number of times that funding was no longer going to work for the museum. Under the direction of this commission, it's always said, well, we have to solve that. We have to solve that. We have to solve that. There's no real changes we can make to the grant program that would solve it. There's just not a way to fund ongoing operations for anybody who would apply. So we have to sort of take a new look at that. One of the ideas that me and Janice came up with was for the port to potentially own the collection, which is now owned by the city. That becomes a much cleaner solution for me to solve. I now have something that I'm responsible for taking care of, which now makes sense for me to send money to the Friends of the Museum to maintain that collection. It's a much cleaner way to do it, and aligns with expending public funds. There was just no way that I could say somebody could come along like the museum and say, well, why does the museum get it and I don't? I don't have a good answer for that. Now I can say, well, I own the collection, I have to maintain it. I went to the city first on that before presenting the idea to you, because me and Janice, as we started going down the rabbit hole of it, found that we were 2 and 3 and 4 hours deep on how this was all going to work, with the idea sort of hinging on whether or not the city would do it. So we put a halt on it, went to the city, presented the idea, they are open to it. So now that we know that they're open to it, me and Janice will continue to sort of formulate an idea of how that would work and what it would look like, whether we continue to keep Friends of the Museum on and pay them as a service that they do for us, whether we bring somebody on to port staff that now oversees that area of business for us. There's a couple different ways to dice that up. You guys will see it more. I apologize if you heard about it out in the community before you heard it from me. They could have said no and it would have just been dead in the water. So we got the cars for sale. Cool. The 2 things that I do know is that it's $400 a year to insure that collection. So it's sort of a small price there. We do get free electrical and water at the museum building. That would likely go away. And then there was one more thing that they requested that if we ever decided to do away with the collection or we no longer wanted it, that they would have an opportunity to take the collection back.
Sell it to them at a reasonable.
Is there a reason why the city, I mean, given that it is a museum, like, is there a reason why the city can't continue giving them free water and electric?
There really isn't. It was sort of brought up in the meeting as a benefit by the city administrator. So, well, no, we can collect water and electricity. We could certainly ask for it. I didn't did that.
Okay. Because I mean, it's a community museum, it should
Come on,
be
you know.
complimentary. It's not like they use that much water.
There's a lot of cost cutting at the city, so, you know, I think this year.
I
it's
think
really tough one.
I think it did help sell it. Definitely could have canceled, but the other thing I wanted to discuss was February 12th for the 6 to 10. We're going to we have a nice strategic business plan that you guys worked on. So, you know, the future of the port is sort of pointed in a direction we're all pretty well comfortable with and understand. The timeline of when those things move was certainly brought up at the last meeting by Ted, and I think we had a good conversation about what's getting the most attention, what's getting the least amount of attention, at what rate does what particular project move. So before you guys leave this evening, which is getting late, and I apologize, you can take a look over at the ED work plan. It's on paper that hangs on my door in my office. That was put together by me and Genevieve and Parker and Janetta and the rest of the staff. And it basically takes the 5-year strategic business plan and lays it out step by step of how we move through that project. When we came to the commission after the strategic business plan, we looked for a little bit of direction to get some priorities on which ones we do first, which ones we tackle first, in which order, et cetera. And we never really moved that needle. So when me and Genevieve went back, we kind of made our best effort to put something together that we thought was achievable and also moved sort of at a consistent pace. With some of the discussion at the last meeting where it was like, well, maybe we want to move that campground a little bit faster. That's something that's totally doable. So you'll see over here to the right, we have now one that's printed on like a glossy paper that we can write on with erasers. I'm actually going to try to get that bigger for the next meeting. So we might go to the print shop one more time. We might have to split it up because she said if I wanted it as big as it's going to be, it can be 8 feet tall. So we'll have to probably split it up. But this will allow us to take a dry erase marker and say, okay, if we move this one forward, this one's going to have to slow down, right? Maybe workforce housing doesn't start for another 2 or 3 years and the campground comes forward. The bridge project here, right? So give you guys a chance to push those needles a little bit, one way or the other. That's really going to take up the bulk of that strategic plan that we're working on the 12th. We will have food. You guys have any recommendations on food? You guys want anything particular? We got to eat. I know what you want. Vegan food. No meat.
Wow.
And there's just
Chips and guac.
Chips and guac. Oh, we could do a stop, but that'd be fun.
stuff with burritos, there we go, simple, easy.
Do they have anything?
Black beans and the veggies that they had at the
Okay.
buffet.
We're getting something else too.
The veggie burritos weren't.
The veggies are fine, yeah.
This is happening on the 12th.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They, I can't do the
Yeah,
beans
yeah.
unless they're just the whole black beans. so they have larded.
What?
I'm scared for a minute that I was gonna be out of town, but I
The market fights.
When I today it's on the 12th.
what?
Today. Somehow they all did.
Oh, good.
I was like, tonight we're gonna figure out when we're doing that. And they were like, we're doing it the 12th from 6 to 10. I was like, oh, great.
Yeah, read our emails.
Right. She just looked at me. She was like, I thought I was out of town.
We're good, we're good.
All right, that's the.
We're
that's
equally
the bulk of
confused.
mine.
All right, business action item. Consider items referred to, no, that's not one. Consider proposed modification to commission meeting schedule.
So this is something that I've been teasing for a little bit with you guys, probably since before the first year. Thanks, David. Having us. I
Bye,
cannot
David.
believe this stayed that long. Like, what is it? Let's get super.
Bye, David.
See you, David.
Stick around for us, I'll say thanks to.
So this is an idea that I've been teasing actually really since the commission, the new commission came in, and you guys talked about not wanting multiple 3-hour and 4-hour meetings. And so there's always been sort of a push to try to streamline what we do. Sometimes we do better than others. One of those things that I looked at was taking us down to 1 meeting a month, which is fairly consistent or across a number of ports in Oregon. We reached out to all of the ports. We got back about 7 responses. You'll see that of the 7 responses, 6 of them are doing the 1 meeting a month. They're all really content with it. I had personal conversations with most of them. A lot of it was around what kind of relationship do you have with your commission? I talked to them pretty much weekly, and they said, that's great. As long as you have that relationship with your commission where they're coming into you, you're reaching up the phone and picking up the phone and talking to them and keeping that communication loop flow or open, closed, either way, the loop, I guess, is closed. Communication line is open, right?
Yeah.
Then it works really well. The one that didn't was Astoria. They do 2 meetings a month. Their feedback was it feels difficult to fill the agenda from time to time. This would require us to have special meetings. That's basically me calling you guys and saying, hey, I have an agenda item. It won't wait until the next meeting. Can we do a 10-minute Zoom meeting? And scheduling those. We have to have them posted for 24 hours. So it'd be a 24-hour post for those sorts of things. We would also, and this comes from Port of Hood River, we take more advantage of the consent agenda. And again, the consent agenda and taking advantage of the consent agenda really comes down to having a good relationship with the commission. A lot of the times we come into these meetings and you guys are already fully aware of the issue that we're going to discuss, of the pros and cons on it, because each one of us, me and you, have discussed it individually, or you've read it in your packet. So very rarely do you guys come in blind to these sort of situations. So being able to take things and stick them in the consent agenda because you guys are aware of them, that's something we would need to do to keep these meetings not going 3 and 4 hours long. I would like to, if it's something you guys choose to do, I would like to continue to keep our regular call schedule that we have. So you guys kind of know the call schedule that you have when you call me and we talk about what's going on and what the meeting, even though there's not going to be a meeting anymore, if you choose to do this, I'd like to keep that going. I'd also like to take the executive director's report and send that out via email instead of having a really long one once a month.
Yeah.
Let you guys get that second one. So here it is. It gives us something to go over that's not an agenda on those Tuesdays, keeps you guys looped in. So we kind of have a plan for it. Staff has discussed it. We all sort of have the same issues, is that, sometimes an agenda is really hard to fill for you guys. Other times it's really simple to fill, right? Sometimes it's a mile long, but when it's not, we wind up having you guys in here sometimes for really short meetings or meetings that we kind of go, we didn't really need to do that, but we did it. And even really the most important piece of it is we're starting to tackle some pretty heavy lift projects, and we don't get a lot of time, especially with the 410 schedule. So we have the meeting, which is today. Now I have 2 days left in the week, right? I got Wednesday, Thursday. So we come back, we sort of synthesize what you guys did. Was there anything that you added to our plate, or we just right back to what we were working on? Sometimes it's one or the other. Thursday comes and goes. Next thing you know, it's Monday, and by Tuesday of next week, we're already talking about the packet that has to be ready to go for the next one. So it's this sort of quick turnaround that has us sort of pulling away from projects regularly. And right now, the projects are starting to get a lot of them, starting to go a lot of different directions, and it's good, but the focus time would be nice. We're not committed to it, but that is sort of our pitch to it. I see both sides of it. I know it's nice to meet often and keep your finger on the pulse, but I feel like there's ways to do that.
So I'm hearing you want to meet every day for 3 hours.
That's exactly right. Every day for 3 hours. We want to discuss whether it was the first meeting or the second meeting that we kept. I would suggest the second meeting. There's a lot of first of the month stuff that keeps us pretty well busy at the beginning. A lot of times Genevieve's rolling on, like Genevieve now rolling right out of the payroll right into this meeting, right? So it could be the second meeting. That would be great. Saw on here that there was Tillamook Bay said the hours were
It would be
the third Tuesday.
third Tuesday.
And it's really up to you guys. We are required by statute to meet once a month. Have to do that. Can't get away from that. And then we'd like to, if we can take advantage of that consent agenda, Port of Hood River's packet is anywhere between 50 and 100 pages usually.
250 pages
250
sometimes.
pages.
It's 243 tonight.
And they don't do any more than 90 minutes. That commission has already said 90 minutes, we're out of here, right? So there are ways to streamline this and make it quicker. Not everybody's cup of tea. I know the previous commission, they'd go until tomorrow if we left. So that's just sort of our feedback on it, but.
Well, somebody want to make a motion to that, and to that effect,
And I'd like to start it, if it's something you guys used to do, I'd like to start it in March. I want to keep with February. I kind of already have some things on the hot plate. I've kind of lined some things up for the 2 in February. Maybe start in March with our first one meeting if we choose to do that.
make a motion to, accept the proposed modification to the commission meeting schedule starting in March 2025. As stated by. Chairman.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, been a motion, a second to.
I do have a request, I'm gonna discuss.
Yes, sir.
I'm for it, but if the agendas and the packets are gonna be bigger and we're only doing once a month, can we get them maybe a
Yes.
day or two earlier than what we currently get?
We will review, we will review that, and yes, the answer is yes.
Okay.
You should have more time to look at it if it's a bigger packet. I don't know which day that comes out now, because I want to look at the schedule and see how does this all balance out, but yeah.
You
No,
were
that's
getting
great.
them on
That's a great
Fridays,
point.
you're now getting them on
That would be
Thursdays.
Yeah.
Tuesday or Wednesday prior to.
Yeah,
the meeting.
Mhm.
Tuesday or Wednesday prior to.
Cause normally it takes a couple hours, to like go through everything, but if I'm gonna do two meetings in one, it's gonna take more.
Yeah, agreed. It's a good point.
Great. Okay, a motion and a second to modify the schedule. To once a month. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Staff certainly appreciates that. Tomorrow becomes a very difficult, most of these folks have been here since 7:30 this morning, so tomorrow is very rough. So to only do this once a month is gonna be super appreciated. I know it's just as rough for you guys, you all work, but.
We may need to do special meetings if we have. Yeah.
Okay, consider resolution 2025-1.
You want to take this one? Both take it. I've generally discussed with commission, so you guys previously approved an amount not to exceed $45,000 to purchase the what is it, transfer switch, as well as the installation for the warming shelter. We got fairly down the road on that project. We ran into a snag. We hit some electrical lines that we weren't aware that was there. We did our due diligence to get them located, but wound up being in a spot where we didn't expect those to be. We've gone over some safety sort of protocols around that. I think we got a little bit lucky that nobody got hurt. So that piece of it is good and a good learning opportunity. The unfortunate piece of it is that it's going to add an additional cost to that. The amount is approximately $10,000. So the resolution tonight would be to take $10,000 out of contingency and move it back towards that project. Parker can probably speak to it more if you have specific questions, but that's sort of the nuts and bolts of it.
What does the 10K cover?
So we originally had the quotes have changed a few times over the course of the project. The initial one was last spring. That was before the installation of the school's new HVAC was complete.
Right.
New HVAC was completed and installed. We had more on-site meetings. Our electricians thought they understood the system well until they received the as-built from the installer of the system. And in that, they found they needed to add one more piece. So that jumped our quote from 35,000 up to 40,000. With the installation of the in-ground conduit, it was a lot less labor from the electrical standpoint, more labor from our team's point. And that project, or the conduit, to go from in-ground to out-ground changed from $2,500 up to 11,000 or 11,000 and some change.
Because we can't do that work in-house.
Yes, and so we can't do that in-house. We don't own the building. So it has to be a licensed electrician in the state of Oregon. And the big cost difference is in-ground conduit can be PVC Schedule 40. Out-ground conduit on an east wall is going to be metal. Is for long-term.
Can't use fiber.
No, no.
Did we get multiple bids for this project?
So this does now tap us into our $50,000 purchasing threshold. And we had originally sought out multiple quotes for this project, but in the haste of getting the project done and it being under 50,000, we went with the folks who came, bid it, and went through the process in full. Now that I've reached that threshold, I've got one quote in or being started, and I've got another electrician that's going to come out and quote that for us. And in that, I could expect competitive quotes out of this. So there may we may see this drop back down in price too, if we decided to go that route.
Give you a number of an electrician that would probably give pretty good deals if you wanna reach out.
Remember that number?
Yeah, yep, and that's one of the folks we've reached out to.
If we're reaching out to, for the new quotes, are we like back at square one?
No, not at all. I mean, with this approval, we could move forward, but for legality's sake, we do need to, within that $50,000 threshold, we can choose the best option for the port and the port's needs. We're not designated to choose the lowest cost option. So, no. In reality, all it will do is educate us more on costs of the, the going rate.
Right.
For this stuff.
Timing, what's the delay in timing to get this?
This is kind of another, so now with this interruption of service, we got extremely lucky, no injuries, nobody got hurt. We also got extremely lucky that the feeder wire we hit and interrupted only feeds the old wood shop. So no classrooms, no lunchrooms, nothing has been affected and for the Hood River County School District. But in that, the area that we found the short end is inside the box of the main service, or the wires cross through the main service. So we have to have the power shut down. So that's my next hurdle is getting what is broken fixed. So we can do that within the school's needs on a day that they either have scheduled off, or we're going to have to do it after hours. And,
So yesterday.
I will, and
would have been great,
I
but I could not make it happen.
Yeah.
I will double check our procurement rules. There's a possibility that we can move forward with this under an emergency, right? We had an electrical wire that was outside of the project. We've now moved into it. This shouldn't delay us. This shouldn't delay us much.
That repair would, if the repair is pretty much the thing that has bumped us over the thresholds. Can I see that little sheet of paper I gave you?
I mean, but with that bumping over the threshold, like, I think I'm really proud of you that you're just like, I should get 3 more quotes. I think there's some administrative angles that we could work through our procurement.
That's how we did
around
the
an emergency. That
Thunder Island Bridge repair came under that, guys, under an emergency repair need. But so right now, that's our big one. And then once we can get, this also comes, these other quotes, I've been less than pleased with timing. So I'm hopeful that I can get this project done swiftly.
Okay, somebody'd like to make a motion, to
I think we had
those funds or to approve the resolution?
Make a motion to accept the resolution 2025-1 as stated by Parker.
Second.
Okay, motion second to approve resolution dash or 2025-1. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously.
Thank you.
And with that, if there's nothing else to come before the commission, I will adjourn us.
we're close. We're adjourned, but I do have a quick question. I guess we can close that out. That's not any business question, so.